Chapter 543. 3 days later, in the depths of the dragon-seeking forest. A group of people traversed through the barren forest in winter. Lin Muyu had brought along 200 divine temple staff and 300 elites from the Dragon Courage Legion, a total of 500 people. Even if they encountered any powerful spirit beasts, they would still be able to contend against them. However, it was not to the extent that they would appear redundant due to having too many people. Rustle, rustle, the hooves of the horses stepped on the weeds. Wei Chou held on to the hilt of his sword as he urged his horse to move alongside Lin Muyu. It's already the third day, and we still haven't found the Cloud Dragon Lake on the map. Sir, could it be that our map is wrong? It's not possible. Lin Muyu shook her head. But the dragon-seeking forest stretches for thousands of miles. It's normal for the map to have an error. I dare to confirm that the dragon-seeking lake is within 5 miles of where I am. Search slowly, and we will find it eventually. Yes. Wei Chou nodded. Sir, although we have brought sufficient rations, we are running out of fodder for the warhorses. If this continues, we can only graze the warhorses in the forest at night to replenish their energy. Lin Muyu responded. However, snowflakes drifted down in the cold wind. Due to the low temperature, the snowflakes did not melt for a long time on her robes. Lin Muyu sighed and said helplessly, "It's going to snow again. I hope the snow isn't too heavy this time, or else it will be troublesome if the mountain is sealed off by the heavy snow." Yes, Wei Chou looked around and said, "Men, release the swift wolves and find the location of the Cloud Dragon Lake." Yes. A few of the temple staff members who had tamed the swift wolves nodded their heads and whistled. Immediately, the swift wolves turned into gray traces and disappeared into the forest. Wei Chou looked around cautiously and said, "Everyone, be on your guard. An extremely powerful spirit beast could appear here at any time. Don't be careless and lose your life here." "Yes, Deputy Commander." Lin Muyu focused her mind and suddenly grasped the hilt of her sword with one hand. She ordered, "Everyone, spread out. Something is coming." Everyone started to scatter, while Lin Muyu leapt off her snowstrider warhorse's back. She stepped on her domain cyclone and paused for a moment in the air. The spirit pulse technique clearly showed that there was a powerful energy rushing towards them. It was underground, and everyone could faintly feel the ground trembling, as if an earthquake was about to happen. "Be careful." Wei Chou took out the demon-devouring bow and knocked a white diamond arrow on the bowstring. Lin Muyu opened her left hand in the air and released her 5 fingers. A golden light shone brightly and she shouted, "Come out, you evil creature." Buzz buzz buzz, golden light soared into the sky as the 7 luminary celestial gourd activated its profound energy. Golden gourd vines rolled around underground, and in the next moment, a huge dragon snake rolled out of the ground. It was a 10,000-year-old earth-drilling dragon snake with 10 golden patterns. The dragon snake's head was bound by the gourd vines, and poisonous thorns pierced into its scales, causing it to bleed profusely. The earth-drilling dragon snake originally wanted to ambush the human army and feast on them. It also wanted to prepare for the lack of food in the coming winter and spring. However, it did not expect to encounter a killing god like Lin Muyu. It was destined that it would not be able to return. Hiss, hiss. The dragon serpent roared angrily and suddenly opened its mouth to spit out a mouthful of flames towards the dozens of people from the holy temple in the distance. These people from the holy temple all had unique skills. Their true qi and dou qi shone brightly, and their martial spirits emerged from their bodies. They were about to enter a defensive state, but with their strength, they might not be able to withstand the breath of the dragon serpent. Bang! Lin Muyu landed heavily on the ground and opened her left hand. The golden dragon blood shield flew up and blocked the breath of the dragon serpent. Without waiting for the dragon serpent to resist, Lin Muyu pounced forward and unsheathed the star's sword. Her 2 martial spirits fused instantly, and the huge treasure sword shone brightly as it slashed at the head of the dragon serpent. Pfft! The dragon serpent's protective spiritual energy was instantly shattered. In the next moment, Lin Muyu's simple and clean slash directly chopped off the head of the dragon serpent. The remaining half of the dragon serpent's body twisted crazily in the soil, and the upper half was spewing out blood. It twisted violently, but it was only a matter of time before it died. Wei Chou and Bai Yin looked at each other. They knew that Lin Muyu was powerful, but they did not know that the commander of the Dragon Courage Legion could kill a 10,000-year-old spirit beast in one move. Dang! The star's sword was unsheathed, and Lin Muyu walked forward. She opened her palm slightly, and the exposed spirit stones of the dragon serpent were sucked into her palm. The flames washed away the snake's blood, and she casually threw the spirit stones into her universe bag. Lin Muyu smiled and said, "The earth-drilling dragon serpent is of the fire attribute, so its meat is not bad. Cut a piece of the dragon serpent's meat and bring it with you to cook at night. It can keep you warm." Everyone nodded and pulled out their weapons. In the blink of an eye, the upper half of the dragon serpent's body was reduced to a pile of bones. At this time, Lin Muyu suddenly became vigilant. She couldn't help but whisper, "Be careful, something is coming. Everyone get off your horses and form a circle with the horses in the middle. Prepare to face the enemy with the universe tactics." Yes. This group of people were well trained and quickly obeyed the order. In the blink of an eye, the 500 people formed a small universe tactics formation in the open space of the forest. Shields, blades, and swords faced the outside. The archers retreated to the back, and the horses were protected in the middle. Everyone had a vigilant look on their faces. Wolf howls could be heard. As night fell, the most terrifying wolf pack in the dragon-seeking forest seemed to have come out to hunt. Swift wolf pack. Wei Chou gritted his teeth and said. Bai Yin squinted his eyes and said, "A swift wolf pack 800 miles deep in the dragon-seeking forest. Interesting. Perhaps there is already a 10,000-year-old wolf king as the leader? You jinx." Wei Chou looked into the distance and saw a pack of swift wolves surging out of the forest. As expected, a wolf king with a total of 12 golden patterns on its head glared at the people in the forest. It bared its teeth, and a stream of mucus flowed down its teeth. This was actually a 12,000-year-old wolf king. Wind attribute spiritual stone, not bad. Lin Muyu thought differently from the rest. Wei Chou groaned inwardly and said, "Madam, this pack of swift wolves is probably more terrifying than any pack of swift wolves we have encountered before. The alpha wolf is 12,000 years old, while the second wolf and third wolf are 9,000 years old and 8,000 years old respectively. Most of the wolves have a lifespan of 5,000 years and above. This is too terrifying." Immediately, a gold star instructor from the sanctum in the universe tactics formation shuddered. He looked at Lin Muyu and said, "Great Deacon, I'm afraid this pack of wolves is the legendary Wolf Emperor pack." Wolf Emperor pack? Lin Muyu was stunned. What does Wolf Emperor pack mean? I've only heard of weasels. The gold star instructor complained incessantly, "The Wolf Emperor pack has existed in the history books for as long as 500 years. This pack of wolves is the fiercest and strongest pack of swift wolves in the entire dragon-seeking forest. This pack of wolves has always bullied the weak, and as long as they will appear as a pack. Over the past 500 years, at least 10 or more sanctuary powerhouses of the Empire have died under the sharp claws of this Wolf Emperor pack. Even sanctuary powerhouses are no match for this pack of wolves. Yes, this pack of wolves is very cunning. If they can win, they will fight. If they can't, they will leave. Under the will tactic, many sanctuary powerhouses have become delicious meals in their mouths. Fortunately, we have more people." Lin Muyu pulled out the star's sword again and said, "Prepare for battle. Prepare the white diamond arrows. Once we enter the shooting range, start shooting. I want to kill more than 100 of them before the wolves arrive." Snowflakes rustled and fell on everyone. In the distance, there was a rustling sound, and a dense pack of wolves emerged. Their lifespans ranged from 2,000 to 10,000 years. The sky darkened in the blink of an eye, and the pack of wolves roared and pounced on them. Swoosh! Wei Chou's arrow flew out and directly pierced through the throat of a 4,100-year-old swift wolf. With an "ao-ao" sound, the swift wolf fell to the ground and rolled far away, immediately dying. Good archery. Bai Yin could not help but smile. He immediately raised his hand and shot an arrow. The arrow disappeared into the forest. Bai Yin's archery skills were obviously not comparable to the art of stealing. Lin Muyu saw this and was determined to get her hands on the spirit stones of the leader wolf, the second wolf and the third wolf. It was rare to see a wind elemental spirit stone with a long lifespan. Once a wind elemental spirit stone was refined, it could greatly increase the speed of a sharp blade. It was extremely rare. Roar! The chieftain wolf roared. Its chest had been hit by 2 arrows from Wei Chou, and it was already bleeding. However, its vitality was very strong, and it still pounced on them. It opened its huge mouth, and a storm descended along with it. Oh no! Wei Chou turned pale with fright. However, Lin Muyu was much calmer. Her figure dashed forward like a bolt of lightning, and a circle of golden gourd walls surrounded her, protecting her body perfectly. The stars soared slashed down from the sky, and 5 mountains descend from the heavens appeared. Boom! The powerful astral energy dispersed the storm formed by the Wolf King. The star's sword landed directly on the Wolf King's head, and with a "kacha" sound, the skull was cut open. Woo, woo, the Wolf King howled miserably. Who would have thought that there would be such a powerful expert in this group of people? Its body fell to the ground under the power of the 5 mountains descend. With a miserable howl, it actually wanted to run away with its tail between its legs. Want to run? Haha. Lin Muyu laughed heartily and stomped on the ground. Peng, 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 3 gourd vines broke out from the ground and surrounded the Wolf King. Numerous golden god-binding chains surged out, and with a "pu, pu, pu" sound, the Wolf King's body was pierced through. In an instant, fresh blood flowed out, and the Wolf King that roamed the depths of the dragon-seeking forest died on the spot. "Ao, ao," the Wolf King howled, and its eyes were filled with ferocity. As soon as the Wolf King died, it immediately took the stance of ascending to the throne. At least 100 swift wolves pounced towards Lin Muyu. Lanyan City. Snowflakes floated in the sky above the city, seeping into the ground. In the darkness of the night, a figure walked straight towards the Cloud King's mansion. His leather boots left traces of snow on the ground. He carried an iron spear on his shoulder, and half of a badger's body was hanging on the other end. This badger's body had already been mostly eaten. Who are you? Don't you know that this is the Cloud King's mansion? A guard said in a cold voice. If you're just here to sell your prey, then leave. The Cloud King's mansion has no shortage of food. I'm not here to sell prey. I'm here to look for my godfather, Su Muyan. The young man raised his head. Under the leather cloak, a pair of clear eyes was like an inverted star. Chapter 544. Su Jun had been the captain of the Su Residence's guards for 7 years. He was well versed in martial arts and had reached the 2nd level of the Heaven Realm last year. Although his cultivation was not on par with the people in the Holy Temple and Zhe Tian Palace, he was second to none in the 7 Seas Palace. His fists were extremely powerful, and he had once killed a 500-kilogram porcupine with one punch. That was why Su Muyun had taken a fancy to him. Among the 500 guards of the 7 Seas Palace, Su Jun's position was no different from that of a commander. It seemed that in the entire palace, other than the masters like Su Muyun, Su Yu, and Su Chang, Su Jun's position was the highest. However, Su Muyun thought that Su Jun was not talented enough to hold a military position, so he did not assign him military duties. Su Jun had a feeling that he was talented, and it was difficult for him to fulfill his ambitions. Naturally, his temper was not good. His Highness, the Cloud King's adopted son? Su Jun could not help but laugh out loud, and the dozens of guards behind him laughed as well. Looking at the newcomer, Su Jun raised his thick eyebrows and said, "How dare a peasant like you claim to be the adopted son of His Highness, the Cloud King? Do you know what happened to someone who claimed to be the butler's son last month? He was beaten so badly that his front teeth fell out. Boy, do you want to try my fist? The young man looked straight into Su Jun's eyes and said, if I challenge you and win, will I be allowed to see my adopted father, Su Muyun? Su Jun's smile became even wider. You're just a hunter, and you want to challenge me? Ha ha ha, I'm afraid you're not strong enough. Forget it, it's rare that I, your grandfather, am in a good mood today. Then, let's have a few moves. Su Jun raised his hand and threw the sword in his hand to a guard behind him, and said, all of you look carefully, see how your boss teaches this country bumpkin who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Go, sir. The group of guards raised their weapons and cheered loudly. Su Jun was unarmed. Both of his fists abruptly collided in front of his chest, and flames burst forth. He cultivated the law of fire, and with a ferocious punch, a fire wolf martial spirit appeared behind him, exuding an imposing aura. The young man couldn't help but smile. He raised his hand and threw the spear and the prey into the snow behind him, saying, since you're using fist techniques, then I'll use fist techniques to break you. You're asking for a beating. Su Jun bellowed, and his iron fist was like a ferocious dragon emerging from the sea, heading straight for his opponent. Who? The flame drew a mark in the night sky. The strength of this punch was no less than 1,000 jin. It was not something an ordinary person could block. Moreover, the fist was surrounded by the fire wolf martial spirit's gale. Just a blow from the gale would be fatal. However, under the astonished gazes of the crowd, the mysterious youth merely raised his right palm and suddenly exerted force. Immediately, the roar of a dragon filled the air as a purple dragon spirit appeared behind him. His palm transformed into a dragon claw and with a paw sound, he grabbed Su Jun's fist. With a sudden twist of his wrist, Su Jun fell to the ground along with his fist. Before Su Jun could land on the ground, the mysterious youth flew forward and lightly kicked out. Bang! The captain of the Yinzhong Palace's imperial bodyguard was sent flying along the snow, crashing heavily onto the stone steps. His face was a mess, and he struggled to get up in disbelief. Looking at the mysterious youth, his face was filled with astonishment. You? Who are you? I've already said, I'm Su Muyun's adopted son. My name is Luo Xian, the youth said calmly. You? Just you wait. Su Jun scrambled and rushed into the mansion. What? Su Muyun, who was having his dinner, was shocked. You're saying, that person's name is Luo Xian, and he defeated you in one move? Su Jun covered the wound on his abdomen, and his face was filled with shame as he said, yes, he called himself Luo Xian, and said that he's your highness's adopted son, but I think he's just a hunter, and he used tricks to defeat me. Your highness, please don't be fooled by him. Su Muyun ignored him, and clapped his hands. Luo Xian has become a talent. Luo Xian has finally become a talent. Su Yu, who was at the side, asked, Father, who is Luo Xian? Do you remember 22 years ago when I led an army to attack the rebels in the Cloud Refining Mountain Range? At that time, I got lost in the Cloud Refining Mountain Range, and I met a child. After asking around, I found out that he was the descendant of Luo Tonghai, the meritorious founding minister, so I took him as my adopted son. That child has been cultivating in the mountains, and now he has finally become a talent. Quick, come with me to see this younger brother of yours that you've never met before. Yes. When Su Muyun and Su Yu arrived outside the palace, they saw Luo Xian standing alone in the snow. However, the snow that was flying in the air couldn't land on him, as it was pushed away by an invisible force. He was circulating his qi to ward off the cold. Su Muyun, who was dressed in a luxurious black robe embroidered with gold patterns, walked out with the help of Su Yu. He looked straight at Luo Xian, and said excitedly, Xian, you've finally grown up. Luo Xian was stunned. You are? I'm your adoptive father, Su Muyun. Su Muyun walked forward shakily, but he was no longer as tall as he was when he was young. He used his trembling hands to measure himself, and said with a smile, back then, you were only this tall. Adoptive father's frame has also shrunk because of old age. Sigh, I've grown old. Luo Xian was extremely excited. She held on to Su Muyun's arms and said, You're really my adoptive father, General Su Muyun? That's me. How is your master? Master is about to ascend to the heavenly realm, so he sent me to assist him. Oh, that's great. Luo Xian immediately knelt down, and said, Luo Xian greets adoptive father. Good, good. Quickly get up. Su Muyun was so excited that his whole body trembled, and said, Xian, quickly come and meet your sister. Her name is Su Yu. From now on, you two can call each other brother and sister, right? Luo Xian greets sister Su Yu. Good brother. Su Yu was beaming with joy. Ever since Su Qin died in battle, she hadn't had a brother for a long time. Now that the heavens had gifted her such a handsome and powerful brother, how could she not be happy? Su Muyun patted Luo Xian's shoulder, and his face was filled with a doting smile, and said, Luo Xian, I heard that you defeated my guard captain, Su Jun. Is that true? Guard captain? Luo Xian was stunned, and said with a smile, Adoptive father, your guard captain is really weak. Su Jun was immediately embarrassed, but he couldn't refute it. Luo Xian's status was now completely above his, and the difference between a master and a servant was like heaven and earth. Are you really that powerful? Su Muyun smiled slightly, and said, Come, why don't you show your strength to adoptive father? All right, adoptive father, please take a few steps back. Su Yu supported Su Muyun and took a few steps back, letting Luo Xian stand alone in the open space in front of the mansion. After slowly closing his eyes, the snowflakes around Luo Xian moved without any wind, and slowly rose up, spinning into a snowstorm. At the same time, Luo Xian's body surface was enshrouded with a fiery red Do Qi, which was the king's Do Qi of the Holy King realm. Hong, a dragon roared, and a bright purple divine dragon martial soul soared into the sky, circling around Luo Xian. For a moment, an invisible pressure fell, and the stone bricks in front of the mansion cracked, and a powerful destructive force was raging. Su Yu's small mouth opened wide, and said, King's Do Qi, he is actually a powerhouse of the Holy King level, my god. Su Muyun's face was full of joy, and said, Enough, Luo Xian, it's enough, adoptive father knows your strength. Luo Xian smiled slightly, and the surrounding cyclone disappeared in an instant, and the snowflakes fell to the ground, and said, Adoptive father, is Luo Xian strong enough to be a general? Yes, I can be. Su Muyun beamed, with a little more training, I can be the main general at the front lines. Luo Xian, you haven't eaten yet, right? Quick, come in with me and your sister, today is our family's first reunion meal. Luo Xian was moved, and tears welled up in his eyes. Since young, he had followed his master to cultivate alone. When he heard the word family, he felt like he was reborn. Yes, adoptive father, in the dragon-seeking forest, the attack of the wolf pack was getting more and more violent. Kacha, the star's sword flashed, and the second wolf was killed. The flames in Lin Muyu's palm spun rapidly, and she suddenly blasted the dark energy of the chaotic life on the third wolf. In the midst of the howling, the third wolf's body was actually split into two by the flames, and was killed. At this point, the top 3 leaders of this wolf pack had been killed by Lin Muyu. Master, we can't hold on anymore, the wolf pack is getting more and more numerous, we will definitely lose if we keep defending. Wei Chou shouted from behind. That's right, the wolf pack did not only rely on strength, but also numbers. At this time, the forest in front was already densely packed with swift wolves, and at least 1,000 swift wolves were charging over. It's okay. Lin Muyu shook his palm, and took out a shining wrist guard from his Qingquan bag. It was the supreme grade Earth Book Mystic Steel wrist guard that he used to win the championship in Iha country. Hum. An earthy yellow light soared into the sky, and the power of heaven and earth was instantly activated. In the next moment, countless flames poured down from the sky, as if the whole world was illuminated. This fiery red magma-like fire rain fell on the wolf pack, and its lethality and destructive power were extremely strong. Immediately, the wolf pack howled incessantly, and the area within a few hundred meters was turned into a sea of fire. Wolves were afraid of fire, and the supreme-grade Earth Book's main purpose was to intimidate them. In the blink of an eye, the pack of swift wolves surrounding the Longdan army camp all ran away with their tails between their legs. Those who did not escape could only become sacrifices for the supreme-grade Earth Book with the words, Fire God Apocalypse, written on it. Not long after, at least 200 swift wolves had been burned to death by the supreme-grade Earth Book, and the smell of burnt meat was already wafting out. The fire rain had been burning for nearly 5 minutes, and it was starting to die down. Oh my God, Wei Chou, Bai Yin, and the rest finally recovered from the shock. Wei Chou said, Master, we can go look for the Cloud Dragon Lake now. Don't be in such a hurry. Lin Muyu laughed and pointed at the corpses of the swift wolves in front of him. Don't waste it, dig out all the spiritual stones of the swift wolves. I want them all, don't waste a single one. Yes. These were all the raw materials for the weapon embryo, how could they waste them? After all, Lin Ruoji was a good child who knew how to run a household. Chapter 545. Wu. While the group was moving, a swift wolf was limping towards them from afar. It was howling in pain, as though it was injured by something. Its neck had a special collar made by Temple. It was a swift wolf that was tamed by Temple. Little Gray, come here. A young staff member hurriedly got off his horse and hugged the swift wolf affectionately. The swift wolf whimpered in its master's ear for a while, as if it had been wronged. Not long after, the staff member turned to Lin Muyu and cupped his fists. Reporting to Commander, this subordinate swift wolf has found the Cloud Dragon Lake. It's about 7 kilometers north of us, but there are many bloodthirsty tigers living around the lake, so we need to be careful. Understood. Lin Muyu looked at the swift wolf's injuries. Its hind legs were covered in blood, so it must have been injured by the bloodthirsty tiger. However, the bloodthirsty tiger had not been able to kill the swift wolf that had been scouting ahead. This meant that the bloodthirsty tiger was not that strong, at most about 10,000 years old. Turn north. Everyone, be careful. Do not let your weapons leave your hands. Yes, Commander. They were already deep in the dragon-seeking forest, so encountering 10,000-year-old spirit beasts was a common occurrence. Furthermore, it was said that the Cloud Dragon Lake contained an extremely rich spiritual energy. Many spirit beasts lived underwater, making it even more dangerous. Looking at the drifting snow and the dark night, Wei Chou cupped his fists. My lord, our vision is already very blurry. Perhaps we should set up camp here tonight and search for the Cloud Dragon Lake tomorrow morning. We will be at a disadvantage if we fight the bloodthirsty tigers at night. That's fine. Set up camp. Yes. Wei Chou waved his arm, and everyone dismounted from their horses, set up tents, and started a fire to cook. In fact, many of them could no longer endure the bitter cold of the wilderness. If they were to starve, not many of them would be able to keep their spirits up. Lin Muyu cooked a pot of swanee meat for herself and Wei Chou and ate it. Then, she used the clear heart incantation to remove the heat poison for Wei Chou. She then sat cross-legged in the tent and operated the forging dragon bone remnant scroll. She tempered the dou qi in her meridians and the strength of her qi si. Wei Chou cultivated for a while at the side. Looking at the faintly discernible dou qi flames around Lin Muyu, he couldn't help but say, when Lord Commander first came to Lanyan City, she was only at the Earth Realm. In just a few years, she actually stepped into the second layer of Sage Realm. She really is a peerless genius. Lin Muyu couldn't help but smile. If you have something to say, just say it, you brat. Wei Chou smiled awkwardly, cupped his fists, and respectfully said, Wei Chou has no great ambitions, but I also hope to cultivate to the same level as Lord Commander. I want to serve the Empire loyally. However, because of my status, Wei Chou doesn't dare to overstep my authority. So, I ask for Lord Commander's advice. Do you know why my cultivation speed is faster than others? This subordinate doesn't know, because of the Forging Dragon Bone Remnant Scroll. Forging Dragon Bone Remnant Scroll? Wei Chou was startled. That's right. Lin Muyu took a deep breath, and patiently explained, although the Forging Dragon Bone Remnant Scroll is only an incomplete scroll, the mental cultivation method can remold the blood vessels, and continuously temper the Qi Si and the true Qi and Do Qi in the Qi Si. It can expand the capacity of the Qi Si, increase the cultivation realm, and cleanse the marrow. It can make one's cultivation completely new. However, the requirements are very high. What requirements? Wei Chou asked. The bone of a true dragon is required to temper the blood vessels. Lin Muyu frowned, thinking back to the pain of assimilating the piece of true dragon bone Qin Yin had given her. She simply didn't want to go through it again. She raised her head to look at Wei Chou's ardent eyes, and couldn't help but smile, saying, logically speaking, the Forging Dragon Bone Remnant Scroll is not something ordinary people can cultivate, but I've been cultivating it for so many years, and have a different understanding of this mental cultivation method. I'm currently trying to rewrite the first and second volumes of the Forging Dragon Bone Remnant Scroll so that ordinary people can also cultivate it. Not to mention remold the blood vessels, but at least cleanse the marrow is not a problem, and it can also greatly increase the speed of cultivation. Wei Chou was overjoyed, saying, "My lord, can you teach it to Wei Chou?" Lin Muyu couldn't help but smile, patting his shoulder, saying, "You, Sen, Shui, Fengxi, and the others are all people closest to me. Naturally, I will teach it to you. Don't worry, perhaps in the future, the Forging Dragon Bone Remnant Scroll will become a common mental cultivation method for the martial artists of the Empire." "That's great," this subordinate thanks the general in advance. Wei Chou was especially excited, his heart filled with wild joy. If it really was as Lin Muyu said, then there was hope for him to step into the Saint Realm, and even if he cultivated bitterly for the rest of his life, he might be able to step into the legendary Divine Realm. Those ancient legends couldn't compare to might be his, and this was the dream of every martial cultivator. That night, Lin Muyu wrote down an improved and simplified version of the Forging Dragon Bone Remnant Scroll on the parchment, but she didn't seem very satisfied, and needed to slowly improve it. So she didn't give it to Wei Chou, hugging the parchment in her bosom and going to sleep. Of course, at this moment, Lin Muyu would never have thought that a simple thought of hers would make him a grandmaster of this generation on this continent, an existence on the level of martial god that everyone praised. The next morning, when he woke up early, the snow had yet to stop, and there was a vast expanse of whiteness everywhere. Wei Chou had already cooked meat soup outside the tent. He brought a bowl in and said with a smile, "Commander, it's time for breakfast." "Okay." Lin Muyu chewed his teeth, brushed his teeth, and washed his face with the water that melted from the snow. He only felt that his face was cold. Good heavens, using ice water to wash his face in the cold winter was really a severe test for his skin. When he walked out of the tent, he only felt that the layer of frost on his face was falling off piece by piece. The weather was really too cold. Outside, a group of soldiers from the Longdan army camp and the staff of the Divine Sanctum were shivering, their faces pale. Wei Chou said, "Sir, the temperature today is at least 10 degrees lower than yesterday. Looking at the weather, it's likely that the dragon forest will be sealed off by the heavy snow. Although spring is coming, we should prepare some rations to survive the winter. Maybe we can only return to Lanyan City when the snow melts in spring. Do we still have the messenger bird we brought with us?" "Yes, send a letter to His Highness. Just say that we might be sealed off in the mountains by the heavy snow, and tell His Highness not to worry about us." "Yes." Lin Muyu flipped onto the horse, looked at everyone, and said, "If you're full, break camp and set off. The real battle begins now." Everyone saluted in unison, then packed up their equipment and mounted their horses. Snowflakes fell on his shoulders, lapels, and armor. Lin Muyu did not circulate his battle armor to resist the cold. This seemed to be a habit that he had developed. He wanted to preserve his strength as much as possible. In a place like the Dragon Forest, no one knew what would happen in the next moment. Even though Lin Muyu had the Spirit Meridian technique, he did not dare to be too careless. The group traveled through the forest and mountain ranges. It had only been snowing for a day and a night, but the snow was already 40 centimeters deep. If it continued to snow for another 4 or 5 days, the snow would most likely reach a depth of 2 meters. Normal people would not be able to traverse through the snow, and the entire forest would also be covered in snow. That would be the legendary snow-ceiling mountain. Lin Muyu's heart was pounding as she looked at the vast expanse of white snow. It appeared that she really would not be able to find the flaming black tortoise. In such frigid weather, the tortoises had most likely already gone into hibernation in their caves, right? After traveling for around 4 to 5 kilometers, a tiger's roar rang out in the distance. Sure enough, it was a 9,200-year-old bloodthirsty tiger with fiery red fur all over its body. Flames were swirling around its paws, and it was lying on top of a massive rock on the mountain range. It was glaring at Lin Muyu and the others from afar, looking as if it were going to pounce down at any moment. They're finally here. A faint smile appeared on Lin Muyu's face. Wei Chou cupped his fists and said, "Milord, leave this bloodthirsty tiger to us. We can't let Milord fight all the time, or else we'll become useless people." "Alright, but you guys have to be careful." "Don't worry, Milord." Wei Chou nodded with a smile, then looked at Bai Yin and said, "Take our men and get ready to go." "All right." The two of them led a few dozen men and charged forward along the mountain path. Wei Chou held his longbow and pulled back the bowstring. His martial soul began to glow, and the arrowhead of the white drill arrow actually let out a buzzing sound. This was the vibration technique that Wei Chou had learned. By infusing his martial soul into the arrow would spiral and shoot, greatly increasing the destructive power of the arrowhead. Wei Chou had once pierced through the bodies of 3 armored demons with a single arrow. His arm strength and archery skills were not just for show. It was also because of his unparalleled archery skills that Wei Chou's position in the talented Longdan army camp had never fallen. Whoosh! With a sharp whistling sound, the arrow spun through the air. The bloodthirsty tiger couldn't react in time and let out a roar as the arrow pierced through its astral energy barrier, piercing its left eye and causing blood to spurt out. Roar! Roar! In its rage, the bloodthirsty tiger ignored the pain and charged down the hill. Wei Chou shot another arrow, blinding the other eye as well. He shouted, "Bai Yin, it's your turn now." Bai Yin replied, "Don't worry." With that, Bai Yin silently used turtle breathing, and his aura magically disappeared from the range of Lin Muyu's spirit pulse technique. Roar! The bloodthirsty tiger had been blinded, so it could only rely on its opponent's aura to attack. However, Bai Yin's aura had completely disappeared under turtle breathing, leaving no trace behind. Noisy! Wei Chou shouted. A dozen of the Longdan army camp's elite soldiers drew their weapons and struck them against their shields. The noise made it even more difficult for the bloodthirsty tiger to determine Bai Yin's position. Clang! The moment he unsheathed his sword, Bai Yin stabbed it into the bloodthirsty tiger's jaw. However, he didn't even have time to draw his sword. The bloodthirsty tiger roared and opened its mouth, spitting out a mouthful of flames. Bai Yin's movement technique was simply too fast. His entire body was like a loach as he slid across the snow. In the distance, Wei Chou shot out 3 more arrows, each one piercing into the bloodthirsty tiger's vitals. This bloodthirsty tiger, which was almost 10,000 years old, was originally a tyrant in this territory. However, under the attacks of these cunning humans, it was unable to retaliate at all. Bai Yin, retreat. The corner of Wei Chou's mouth curled up. Just wait until it bleeds to death. Russell, Bai Yin didn't reply, and Takshu left. Not long after, the bloodthirsty tiger unleashed a barrage of flames, but it was unable to kill anyone. Finally, it let out a miserable howl and fell to the ground. Fresh blood seeped into the snow. It had died a humiliating death. Chapter 546. Milord, what do you think of our battle tactics? Wei Chou asked with a slightly smug smile. Lin Muyu nodded happily. Good. 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 If you can cooperate like this in battle, it won't be difficult for you to kill a saint. Work hard. Yes, milord. It was true that two Heavenly Realm cultivators had easily taken care of a nearly 10,000-year-old bloodthirsty tiger. This was too shocking, but Wei Chou and Bai Yin had done it, and that was because they had fully utilized their advantages. Wei Chou's arm strength and archery, while Bai Yin's turtle-breathing technique hid his aura. As long as these two advantages were fully utilized, the bloodthirsty tiger's death was inevitable. After digging out the 9,200-year-old fire-type spirit stone, Lin Muyu tossed it into her cosmos sack and said, "Let's continue in search of the Cloud Dragon Lake." "Yes, milord." As they moved forward, they encountered another 7,400-year-old bloodthirsty tiger, which was also taken care of by Wei Chou and Bai Yin. However, when they encountered a third bloodthirsty tiger, a 1,700-year-old one, Wei Chou and Bai Yin did not attack it. Instead, they used Lin Muyu's gourd vines to capture it. Then, a staff member of the Holy Temple with moderate cultivation used the beast-taming art to fuse with it. The bloodthirsty tiger was an overlord-level spirit beast that comprehended the law of fire. It was also a very precious spirit pet, especially one that was easily tamed at such a young age. It was practically a treasure. As the beast-taming art written by Lin Muyu slowly spread, those with decent cultivation in the imperial capital could basically fuse with a spirit beast. Everyone called it a spirit pet, and the scions of the nobility naturally began to compare the excellence of their spirit pets for fun. As a result, the business of spirit pets in the various merchant guilds became especially popular. Many fearless mercenaries also entered the dragon search forest to hunt spirit beasts. Every day, there would be an endless stream of mercenaries who would tie up spirit beasts in cages and send them into the city. The horse's hooves left footprints in the snow as Lin Muyu urged her horse forward slowly. Bai Yin frowned and said, "What's going on?" "Logically speaking, we should have already reached Cloud Dragon Lake." In front of them was a vast expanse of white flatland. Lin Muyu raised her eyebrows and dismounted from the horse. She quickly wiped the snow off the ground with her hands. When she wiped it clean, she discovered that there was actually a layer of ice underneath the snow. "We're already on the Cloud Dragon Lake," Wei Chou said after being stunned for a while. Bai Yin said, "Then, where is that blazing black tortoise?" Logically speaking, the blazing black tortoise should be on the shore of the Cloud Dragon Lake. Damn it, could it be that the blazing black tortoise is already extinct? Then we really came for nothing. Don't be discouraged. Lin Muyu shook her head and said, "Let's go back. We seem to have gone too far." Riding on Takshu's back, Lin Muyu closed his eyes and slowly extended his spirit pulse technique. However, he still could not find any traces of the blazing black tortoises. He frowned and could not figure it out. He clenched his fist and immediately, a wisp of golden divine power surged into his Yi. It was Fushi's divine power. Using Fushi's divine power as the source of power, he activated the spirit pulse technique to probe again. This time, the spirit pulse technique's insight seemed to have increased by a few orders of magnitude. He could even detect the auras of insects, snakes, and rats underground. At the same time, deep underground on the shore of the Cloud Dragon Lake, Lin Muyu sensed that there was already fire energy resting at a depth of nearly 10 meters underground. Found it. He opened his eyes confidently and pointed his sword straight at a spot dozens of meters in front of him. He said, "Men, dig from here. About 10 meters away, we will be able to find the hibernating blazing black tortoise." "Yes, sir." A group of soldiers waved their shovels excitedly and started digging. As the soil flew, the pit became deeper and deeper. Meanwhile, the fire aura was getting stronger. Lin Muyu held his star's sword and stood guard at the side. He could not let the soldiers who were digging the pits suffer any losses. After waiting for a while, there was a sudden clang. A soldier's shovel broke into two. It seemed like he had dug up something very hard. It was something that could break steel. It was extraordinarily hard. "Be careful. Move away," Lin Muyu said loudly. "Yes." Everyone picked up their shovels and climbed out of the pit. Lin Muyu raised her hand to summon the 7 luminary celestial gourd. Numerous gourd vines surged out of the ground and lifted up the hibernating big fellow. It was a flaming black tortoise with a diameter of 2 meters. The flaming black tortoise's shell was in the shape of a sheet on its back. It could be bent, and when it coiled up, it looked like a huge fire lizard. Swish swish, it slowly opened its eyes from hibernation. When it saw Lin Muyu and the others, it immediately became violent. It roared angrily and the shell on its back stood up. Flames surged and swept the gourd vines toward Lin Muyu. At this time, Lin Muyu also saw it clearly. It was a 4,700-year-old blazing black tortoise. It could be considered a cub. "Commander, be careful." "It's fine." Lin Muyu laughed and raised her hand. The fiery Red King's combat flame danced and pushed forward. Suddenly, there was a bang, and the blazing black tortoise was forced to take a few steps back. Its curled-up body also slowly spread out. It lay on the ground and yelled at Lin Muyu. It seemed to be very angry. However, more and more golden gourd vines appeared. Lin Muyu's invisible domain also gradually descended and suppressed the little guy's anger. A 4,700-year-old black tortoise. Whoever has the confidence to tame it can come and try. "Let me try." In the crowd, a strong man in his 40s walked over with a sword in his hand. With a low shout, the spiritual power of the beast taming tactics surged out of Yi-Hai and began to communicate with the black tortoise. His body was enshrouded with a faint fighting spirit. He was a strong man in the heaven realm, a gold star instructor of the holy temple. Not long after, beads of sweat appeared on his bald head. Lin Muyu said, "If you can't do it, don't force yourself." He shook his head and closed his eyes. "Commander, let me try again." "Okay." Suddenly, the gold star instructor groaned and spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood turned into a blood mist and shrouded the head of the blazing black tortoise. Was this the legendary blood contract? Lin Muyu couldn't help laughing, but she could clearly feel that the violent mood of the black tortoise was slowly calming down. Soon after, the gold star instructor opened his eyes and reached out to touch the head of the black tortoise. He said with a smile, "Little guy, follow me from now on. I promise you will have enough to eat and drink." The psychic fusion was successful. Lin Muyu couldn't help but be overjoyed. Not bad. The gold star instructor was also overjoyed. He cupped his fists and said, "Thank you for giving me such an opportunity, Commander." Lin Muyu nodded and pointed not far away. "There's another one there. Keep digging, and there. There are blazing black tortoises there too. Don't be tired, keep digging." Yes. Everyone was beaming with joy. Now, they could basically confirm that this trip to the Dragon Forest was not a waste. At the same time, Lingnanziha country, by Ling City's main hall. Qin Yi wore a black robe embroidered with dark golden dragon patterns. It was a dragon robe. No one knew when he had gotten used to wearing a dragon robe. Long Qianlin, Ji Yao, Qin Huan, and the other generals stood on both sides. The civil and military officials were extremely respectful. Qin Yi slowly raised his arm and said with a smile, "Come, invite the fire dance deity king for an audience." The eunuch outside the hall said loudly, "Commander invites the fire dance deity king into the hall." However, there was no sound from outside. Instead, a crack in the air in the hall was torn open by a purple light. A beautiful woman walked out barefoot from the crack. Her beautiful face carried a disdainful smile. She wore a light muslin dress and slowly raised her snow-white arm. She bowed in the air and said with a smile, "This little girl, Ouyang Yan, pays respect to Commander." Qin Yi quickly got down from the dragon throne and cupped his fists, saying, "Fire Dance Deity King is the deity of the heaven realm. She stands above all things in the mortal world. There's no need to be so courteous. Men, prepare a seat for Fire Dance Deity King." A few guards carried a golden seat and placed it under the king's step closest to the dragon throne. Qin Yi very respectfully waved his hand and said with a smile, "Fire Dance Deity King, please take a seat. Commander is too courteous." Ouyang Yen did not take a seat. Instead, she stepped on the air and walked towards Qin Yi. Every step she took in the air created a flame ripple, as graceful and magical as the water of a fairy. She walked straight into the main hall, her feet lightly landing on the armrest of the dragon throne. Her delicate body took advantage of this and lay on the back of the dragon throne like a soft spirit snake. The light gauze on her body flowed down her beautiful body like water. She smiled and said, "It's still more comfortable here." Qin Yi's expression was extremely ugly. He turned to look at Ouyang Yen and took several steps back. He cupped his fists and said, "Today, I've seen Fire Dance Deity King's beauty. You're truly the most beautiful woman in the world. Lord Fire Dance Deity King has descended upon the mortal world and brought glory to the three realms. You're truly a blessing to the three realms." Below the king's step, Ji Yao's face was filled with anger. His hand grasped the hilt of his sword and he said in a low voice, "How disrespectful this woman is." Long Qianlin quickly pressed down on Ji Yao's palm. His eyes were filled with fierceness as he said indifferently, "Commander Ji, do you want to die?" Ji Yao was stunned. He saw Ouyang Yen shooting him a gaze filled with killing intent. This gaze sent a chill down his spine. He felt as if he had fallen into an ice cave. He could not say a word. Hee, Ouyang Yen suddenly smiled sweetly. Her body flashed and landed on the seat that was prepared for her. Her figure gracefully landed on the seat. Auspicious clouds appeared around her, making her look like a fairy. She said, "Thank you for such courtesy, Commander." Qin Yi heaved a sigh of relief. He cupped his fists and said, "Lord Fire Dance Deity is too courteous. This is what we from the mortal world should do. I, Qin Yi, have a presumptuous request. I hope Lord Fire Dance Deity will not refuse." "Oh, what presumptuous request?" Ouyang Yen crossed one of her long legs and asked with a smile. Qin Yi cupped his fists and said, "The southern ridges Iha country is filled with outstanding talents. The land is fertile and the world is beautiful. The common people hope that the heaven world will have the blessing of a great deity. Therefore, I hope that Lord Fire Dance Deity will not look down on the position of Iha country's imperial preceptor." "Imperial preceptor?" Ouyang Yen smiled. "Doesn't the imperial preceptor already have someone?" "Luo Lan." Qin Yi's body trembled. A trace of uneasiness flashed across his face. Senior immortal Luo Lan has been staying in the 7 world palaces for a long time. She does not care about worldly affairs. Therefore, I hope that Divine King Fire Dance Deity will not hesitate to be the great imperial preceptor of Iha country. From now on, every temple in Iha country will worship Divine King Fire Dance Deity Ouyang Yen. The incense will not be cut off. Is that so?" Ouyang Yen suddenly left her seat and appeared in front of Qin Yi at lightning speed. Her pretty face was only a few centimeters away from Qin Yi's old face. She looked at Qin Yi with a smile and said, "I'm not Luo Lan. I don't need that money, that useless worship and empty reputation. I only want all the spiritual beasts and spiritual stones of your Iha country." All the spiritual stones? Qin Yi was stunned. After a while, he took a step back and cupped his fists. "I will definitely strictly order the Iha country to pay all the spiritual stones to the imperial preceptor." Ouyang Yen smiled. "That's right." Chapter 547. The Heaven Gorge was a huge gorge that stretched for thousands of miles. White clouds lingered in the depths of the gorge. Although it was winter, it was full of spring. Hundreds of flowers bloomed, creating a beautiful scene. Between 2 huge mountain ranges, a majestic city stood in the middle of the mountains. The city was built with white jade bricks, looking solemn and solemn. The buildings in the city crisscrossed, and rows of cavalrymen wearing golden armors and riding on majestic war horses flew across the city, looking very busy. Hua hua. The warm wind made his cloak flutter. Among the magnificent pavilions, Qian Feng was wearing a marshal's military uniform with a helmet under his armpit, respectfully stepping into the palace step by step. Marshal Qianfeng, you're here? The head of the royal guards greeted respectfully. Yes, the divine emperor summoned me, Qianfeng said. Go in. Yes. The doors of the hall slowly opened. It was dark inside, all the windows were sealed shut. When Qianfeng stepped into the hall, the doors behind him slowly closed. It was already dark inside, but Qianfeng's cultivation base was profound. He could judge the terrain by the aura and walked in. He suddenly knelt down on one knee and said in a deep voice, "Subordinate Qianfeng pays respect to His Majesty God Emperor." In the darkness, strands of blood-red combat energy rose up, illuminating the person sitting on the throne. He was wearing a gilded cloak, and his face was hidden under the cloak. However, his voice was very loud and clear. He faintly said, "The marshal has finally returned. How is the training going?" Qianfeng said, "I have just grasped the profound meaning of the Qingquan battle technique. I still need some time to practice. Moreover, the armor demons are too clumsy. It is quite difficult to train them in battle techniques. I'll have to trouble you to train the troops, Marshal." Demon King's face was still hidden under the cloak. There are many outstanding cultivators in the celestial race, but the one who knows the most about the human army is still you, Marshal. Among the two marshals, Lei Chong is reckless. He can only lead the troops and not strategize. The future of the celestial race is in your hands, Marshal. Qianfeng cupped his fist and said, "This subordinate will not disappoint you, Your Majesty God Emperor." In addition to the armor demons, this subordinate has also recruited the Sky Hunters in the Heaven Gorge. The Sky Hunters are of the same lineage as the high-level celestial race, but they are born with moon eyes and have excellent archery skills. They can hit the target from 200 meters away. They will be a great help to the celestial race. Demon King said, "The Sky Hunters are originally the descendants of the celestial race. It is a great fortune for Marshal to let them serve the celestial race." Also, this subordinate has ordered the human craftsman to forge the giant crossbow and train a group of armor demons to learn how to use the crossbow. This kind of giant crossbow is about 2 meters long and can only be used by the armor demons with great strength. The impact when shooting is strong. I believe it can break the humans' arrow boxes. In addition, this subordinate has also ordered the human craftsman to mine and smelt iron to forge a large number of armors and shields for the armor demons. With the shields and the body defense, I believe that even the humans' white diamond arrows will not be able to penetrate the defense of the armor demons. Good, very good. Demon King smiled faintly and said, "Our celestial race has Marshal Qianfeng. I have nothing to worry about. Marshal, can you send someone to the human empire and Iha country to inquire about the situation?" Qianfeng smiled faintly and said, "This subordinate has been bribing the human spies to provide us with information. On the Empire's side, they have established the Heavenly Book Pavilion to collect all kinds of heavenly books and strengthen the training of the army. They have added a lot of troops to the steel wall. On the Iha country's side, Long Qianlin and the others are still training the chain horses to deal with our armor demon army." "Then what about Ning? Demon King suddenly asked. Qianfeng trembled all over and remained silent. Demon King's voice suddenly became much higher and sterner. He stood up and said in a low voice, "Ning is my most beloved daughter. My poor Ning is still imprisoned in Lanyan City." Dam Linmuyu and Feng Jixing, blood-red Do Qi rose rapidly and hovered around Demon King. 8 blood-red vortexes slowly rotated around Demon King. A strong aura descended on the entire hall. Suddenly, Qianfeng was so oppressed that he almost couldn't breathe. Cold sweat poured down his body and his body trembled slightly. He knelt on the ground and begged for mercy with a pale face, "Your Majesty. Your Majesty." Only then did Demon King realize that he had lost control of his emotions and immediately sat back on the throne. He withdrew all his aura and looked like an old man sitting in the dark. Qianfeng looked as if he had walked out of hell. He looked at Demon King while panting and said, "Your Majesty has already stepped into the level of an 8-star demon master. I'm afraid you are already invincible in the world." "Invincible in the world?" Demon King couldn't help but smile and said, "If I was really invincible, I would have gone to Lanyan City to save my Ning. With my current strength, I don't have the confidence to defeat Qin Han, who has dual martial souls. I still need some time to continue cultivating. Marshal Qianfeng, you can go now. Remember to send more troops to confront the steel wall and pressure the Qin Empire. Otherwise, they will neglect my Ning. Yes, Your Majesty. Oh yes, go and take a look at the nest. I believe you will like the new species in the nest. Qianfeng was startled. He cupped his fists and said, yes, I will go and take a look now. Go. I need to rest for a while. Remember to visit Jing more often. She is your fiancée. Don't neglect her. Yes. Qianfeng turned around and left. However, his heart was in a mess. Qin Yin's beautiful face appeared in his mind. He couldn't help but shake his head to get rid of this horrible thought. Dang! The door of the temple closed again. Demon King Feng Yuan slowly lifted his cloak. An old face appeared under the dim light. He was hale and hearty. He said indifferently, Saint Sovereign, what do you think of Qianfeng? In the darkness, an old man in a black robe walked out and stood respectfully beside Demon King Feng Yuan. He said, Qianfeng is both brave and intelligent. He is a famous general of our celestial race. Didn't His Majesty decide to leave the Tongtian Gorge because of Qianfeng's appearance? But, from what I can see, Marshal Qianfeng's mind is not on Her Highness Feng Jing. How can I not know? A trace of coldness flashed across the demon monarch's face as he said, but we are in need of manpower, so let's not bother about him. As long as Qianfeng is loyal to the god race and helps us conquer the Shattered Cauldron realm, it will be enough. Saint Sovereign smiled. Your Majesty is wise. How is the situation in the heaven domain? Saint Sovereign should be able to see something from the worm nest, right? The heaven domain. Saint Sovereign sighed and said, a war of gods has already broken out in the millions of star realms. The 7 luminaries demon emperor is very powerful. He has dozens of god emperors and hundreds of god kings who are good at fighting. All the gods in the celestial domain are already in awe of him. If they don't unite, I'm afraid the 7 luminaries demon emperor will eventually unify the heaven domain. But what? But the 7 luminaries demon emperor is ruthless and unreasonable. He doesn't follow the heavenly Tao. With his conquest, I'm afraid the god emperors of the sky beyond Avalon will be displeased. If the gods of the sky beyond Avalon join this war of gods, the outcome will be hard to predict. Is there any other situation? Yes. Saint Sovereign said respectfully, in the war of gods a few months ago, the dancing flame god king, Ouyang Yen, was defeated. Her godhead was stolen and she fell to the lower realm with a broken body. Coincidentally, she landed in the Shattered Cauldron world and became a crippled god, who lost her godhead. However, her strength is still not to be underestimated. When she was in the heaven domain, her cultivation was already very close to the god emperor realm. Now, in the Shattered Cauldron world, even without a godhead, she can still intimidate everyone. Demon King Feng Yuan squinted his eyes and asked with a smile, how is Ouyang Yan's current strength compared to Saint Sovereign's? Saint Sovereign smiled. Within 100 moves, I can kill Ouyang Yan. Yes. The Demon King said faintly, this is Saint Sovereign's true strength. Sigh. It's just that I'm not strong enough. Otherwise, I would have gone to Lanyan City and brought Ning home. Saint Sovereign cupped his fists and said, Your Majesty, don't let your emotions affect your decisions. His Highness Ning is eating and drinking well in Lanyan City. Lin Muyu and Feng Jixing aren't vicious people, so they will naturally treat His Highness well. However, if your Majesty goes to Lanyan City, even if you can kill Qin Han, the battle between gods will definitely cause ripples in the heavenly lake. Once the 7 luminaries demon emperor sees the ripples in the heavenly lake, I'm afraid he won't let it go. After all, he treats Lin Muyu like his own younger brother. I understand. Thank you, Saint Sovereign. However, once the time is ripe, I will definitely send my army to Lanyan's city and demand that Qin Yin hand over the throne and the world. Yes, my emperor is wise. Amidst the clattering of horse hooves, Qianfeng led a group of guards out of Fairy's capital and into the forest on the side. In the distance, a huge cave appeared at the end of the road. A group of armor demons was panting heavily as they walked out of the cave. There was even some mucus on their bodies, like the mucus of chicks that had just come out of their eggshells. Greetings, Marshal. The group of demon soldiers guarding the hive all cupped their fists and knelt down. Rise. Qianfeng said faintly, His Majesty the God Emperor asked me to see the new species in the hive. Let's go, take me there. Yes. The group led Qianfeng into the hive. Instantly, they were hit by a very pungent smell. Qianfeng couldn't help but frown. He looked forward and saw that the vesicles attached to the walls of the hive were slowly wriggling. One of the vesicles had already begun to crack, revealing an arm. It was the arm of an armor demon. At the same time, the bodies of winged people were slowly growing on the stone walls of the cave. Marshal, please look over there. Following the direction of Tsong Ren's finger, there was a Wuxia sound in the air above the hive. A huge creature was twisting its huge body as it flew over. It was a giant snake at least 100 meters long with fish-like fins. It flew in the air and stared straight at Qianfeng with a ferocious expression. What is this? Qianfeng shuddered. Tsong Ren's face was full of pride as he said, This is called a giant flying snake. An adult flying snake is 100 meters long and covered in scales. It's invulnerable and has a force field inside its body. When it opens its mouth, it can absorb energy and spit venom. Now, we have already bred more than 10 flying snakes, and there will be more in the future. These flying snakes can join the Marshal's army after a little training. Now, what do you think the Marshal will win against the humans? Qianfeng looked up at the flying snake and gulped. He murmured, This is like a monster, the end of the humans has really come. Chapter 548. Phew, in the cave, Feng Jixing suddenly exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. Faint golden Sanskrit characters slowly rotated around him. When he looked up, he saw that the dim cave had suddenly become brighter. It was as if the cave had been pierced through. Auspicious clouds surrounded the cave, and thousands of Buddhist lights shone down from the sky onto his body. The kindness of the common people and the Buddha heart seeped into his spiritual field, making him feel comfortable all over. Although Feng Jixing didn't truly study Buddhism, he who had kindness in his heart quickly comprehended the Buddha heart. Raising his head, he saw many gods and Buddhas standing in great numbers. The Buddhas looked at him with benevolence, as though they were welcoming a new Buddha heart disciple. Ah! Feng Jixing's body trembled, perhaps out of excitement, or perhaps out of inexplicable nervousness. The next moment, the images of the Buddhas fell one by one, turning into Buddhist lights and entering Feng Jixing's body. Suddenly, everything turned dark. The illusion disappeared, and he returned to the darkness in the cave of Eagle Nest Mountain. Feng Jixing clicked his tongue in wonder, but he didn't know that he had already comprehended the Buddha's heart. But when he circulated his qi, the sound of Sanskrit resounded in his ears again. His body was enveloped by a layer of faint golden luster that condensed into the form of an arhat. He suddenly realized that he had already comprehended the 7th level of the Vajra protection technique, Arhat descent. Dong dong, Zhang Wei's voice came from outside the stone door. General Feng, His Highness summons you to His Highness. There will be a court meeting this afternoon. Oh, I'll be right there. Feng Jixing floated down from the rock and landed on the ground. After he opened the stone door, a dazzling ray of sunlight shone on his face, making him feel especially comfortable. The Arhat's descent technique around him had yet to completely dissipate, causing Zhang Wei to be dumbfounded. He said, Commander Feng. You have comprehended the 7th level of Vajra's protection? That's right. Feng Jixing smiled and said, The diamond protection divine art is indeed a unique art. It is very powerful. Zhang Wei touched his nose and said, General Feng, you must not tell Commander Yu about this. Why? An Arhat has descended. This means that General Feng has already entered Buddhism. In other words, he has become a monk. Commander Yu will laugh at you for not being able to find a wife. How dare he? Feng Jixing clenched his fists, and his eyes were filled with righteous indignation. You, this stinking brat, has won the most beautiful women in Lanyan City, Her Highness Yin, Princess Shi, and Chu Yao, the three great beauties. He definitely won't mercilessly laugh at me for not being able to find a wife. Zhang Wei laughed heartily. General Feng, don't be so agitated. A few days ago, one of the Fire Sparrow Division's hall masters, Lei Wantong, came to the Imperial Army camp, saying that he wanted to arrange a marriage for you. His second daughter, Lei Xiaodai, is already 16 years old and can be married off. He said that if General Feng is interested, there is no harm in marrying Lei Xiaodai. It can also be considered a wonderful thing. Lei Xiaodai? Feng Jixing frowned and said, is it that Lei Xiaodai who weighs 245 kilograms? I, Feng Jixing, will never compromise even if I have to be alone for the rest of my life. Zhang Wei, you don't have to say any more, or else you will be punished according to military law. Yes, Commander. Let's go eat something before entering the hall. Sir, I'm afraid we won't be able to make it in time. There is only an hour left before the court assembly, and it will take about an hour to go from Eagle Nest Mountain to Zetian Hall. Why don't you bear with it for a while and eat your fill after the court assembly? But I haven't eaten for 3 days. Sir, you are a Holy King level expert after all. It won't be a big deal if you starve for a while. Let's go quickly. If His Highness blames us for being late for the court assembly, we won't be able to bear the consequences. Commander Yu has gone to the Dragon Forest to carry out official duties. If you don't attend the court assembly, His Highness will be alone and helpless. All right then, Feng Jixing rubbed his stomach, and his stomach responded with a goo-goo sound. Only when he had recovered from his cultivation did he feel the surging feeling of hunger. He could only groan inwardly bitterly as he mounted his horse and led dozens of Imperial Army soldiers from Eagle Nest Mountain to Lanyan City. In the afternoon, Zetian Hall was surrounded by groups of soldiers. The number of Imperial Guards had already been restored to 200 people. Qin Yan, as the commander, was currently standing at the side of the Great Hall with an iron spear in his hand. His gaze was calm as he looked at the ministers of the Empire entering the hall. On the side, the commanders of the Dragon Guard and Tiger Guard were all outstanding cultivators selected from the Holy Temple. They stood extremely respectfully at Qin Yan's side. Qin Han lived behind the Zetian Hall. In reality, the Zetian Hall couldn't be any safer. The Imperial Guards guarding the Zetian Hall was nothing more than a formality at this moment. Right at this moment, Tang Lan walked up the stone step by step with the support of Tang Xiaoxi. He was already very old, and his cultivation was low. How could he withstand the torment of the passing of time? His aged face no longer had the arrogant and bossy air from before. Instead, there was more kindness and tranquility. Qin Yan cupped his fists. Paying respects to Your Highness, the Seven Seas King. Paying respects to Princess Shi. Tang Lan smiled and said, Good afternoon, Commander Qin Yan. Tang Xiaoxi said, Yan, has Mu returned to the imperial capital yet? Not yet. Qin Yan said, this time, Big Brother said that he has to capture over 100 blazing black tortoises in the dragon-seeking forest before returning to Lanyan City. Over 100 blazing black tortoises aren't that easy to capture. Moreover, it's raining continuously. There's news from the dragon-seeking forest that the mountain is going to be sealed off by heavy snow. If that's the case, Big Brother can only return to the imperial capital when spring warms and the snow melts. Tang Xiaoxi pouted and said unhappily, how can it be like this? Qin Yan smiled and said, this is something that can't be helped. Princess Shi, please wait patiently. Big Brother will return sooner or later. We're entering the hall. All right. After a few more minutes, Feng Jixing, Zhang Wei, Luo Yu, Xiahou Sang, and the other generals walked over together. Qin Yan still cupped his fists and said, General Feng, you're here. Ah Yan, your complexion is getting better and better. Your breathing is steady. Looks like your cultivation has improved again. You should be stepping into the holy region soon, right? Feng Jixing asked with a smile. Amen, it's just a matter of a few days. I should be able to step into the holy region, Qin Yan said with a face full of confidence. Feng Jixing sighed with emotion. Back then, the 4 heroes of Lan Yan were already bestowed by His Majesty as the young generation with the highest cultivation in the empire. Looking at it now, Yan has entered the holy region at the age of 21, even younger than that brat Yu. Truly, the new generation surpasses the old. Qin Yan smiled slightly and said, What are you saying, General Feng? We're all serving the empire. Moreover, the path of cultivation is endless. Who knows, I might be stuck at a certain realm for tens of years one day. On the other hand, General Feng's beer is full. You should have achieved some success in your cultivation, right? Not bad, just hanging around. Feng Jixing patted his shoulder and said with a smile, Then we're going in. Rumble, right at this moment, his stomach protested again. Qin Yan was stunned. What's this sound? Feng Jixing had an awkward expression. I came in a hurry and didn't have lunch. Hopefully, the afternoon court meeting can start a little faster. Go on, go on. If General Feng doesn't mind, I'll get the palace maids to prepare some hearts and send them over to you. No, you can't be special. As he spoke, Feng Jixing brought the 3 deputy commanders and stepped into the main hall. At this moment, almost everyone had arrived. Instead, Su Muyun arrived a little later with the help of Su Yu. Furthermore, there was a young man with an extraordinary appearance following behind him. He was wearing a green soft armor and was holding onto a metal spear that looked like it was made by nature. Qin Yan immediately extended his hand to stop him and said, Your Highness, this is? My godson, Luo Xian. I see. Young Master Luo Xian doesn't have a noble title yet. Please wait outside the main hall. All right. Su Muyun nodded, turned around, and said to Luo Xian in a gentle voice, Xian, wait here for a while. In a while, I will recommend you to Her Highness. At that time, just listen to the announcement and enter the main hall. Yes, Father. Luo Xian stayed outside the main hall unwillingly and looked straight at Qin Yan with a provocative expression. Qin Yan was born a martial arts fanatic. Although he was young, his cultivation wasn't ordinary. Naturally, he also looked at Luo Xian coldly. However, Luo Xian didn't circulate his force, so Qin Yan couldn't see that this kid in front of him had the strength of a holy king. In the main hall, a group of officials stood in great numbers. Qin Yin was wearing an exquisite pale gold long dress. Her long hair was coiled up and strung together with a beast bone hairpin. This was bought by Lin Muyu when she and Lin Muyu were training in the White Leaves Forest. Although this beast bone hairpin was only worth 2 copper coins, to Qin Yin, it was especially meaningful. It was even more precious than those priceless jade hairpins on the Empress's dressing table. She walked gracefully to the front of the throne, dragging a graceful and luxurious golden robe behind her. Under the radiance of the radiance, the officials didn't dare to raise their heads to look at her. After Qin Yin sat down, the chief female official, Shangguan Jingyue, held a file and said, This month's revenue and expenditure are as follows. North Ridge Province, K County, the Treasury has a revenue of 759,000 gold and expenditure of 346,000 gold, a net income of 413,000 gold. North Ridge Province, Zhoushe County, the Treasury has a revenue of 814,000 gold. All the officials listened attentively. After Shangguan Jingyue finished reporting the lengthy financial revenue, Qin Yin smiled and said, Sirs, please report if there's anything. If there's nothing, the court is dismissed. Heavenly Book Pavilion Administrator Ji Lin immediately stepped out and cupped his fists and said, Your Highness, Heavenly Book Pavilion is full of outstanding talents. The second young master of the Lu residence, young master Lu Feng, wrote a book on the laws of thunder and lightning last night. I believe that in the near future, this child will definitely be able to write a heavenly book and enter the ranks of scholars. Good. Qin Yin smiled and said, Heavenly Book Pavilion indeed lives up to expectations. We still have to continue to work hard. Many thanks for your praise, Your Highness. Ji Lin stepped back and joined the ranks. His heart was filled with joy as he gained a sense of existence. At this time, Su Muyun stepped out of the ranks and cupped his fists, saying, Your Highness, this old man would like to recommend a peerless general to Your Highness. Oh, a peerless general? Qin Yin couldn't help but smile sweetly. Grandfather, who is this peerless general you speak of? Su Muyun said, It's this old man's godson, Luo Xian, who has been cultivating in the cloud refining mountain range for dozens of years. Now, with his tyrannical cultivation, he is willing to serve the empire. He can take on great responsibilities. Chapter 549. In that case, summon him for an audience, Qin Yin said cheerfully. Thank you, Your Highness. Su Muyun turned around and said to a few attendants, Someone, summon Luo Xian into the hall. The attendants passed on the message. Very quickly, Luo Xian, who was standing outside the hall, entered the hall accompanied by Qin Yen. He wore a set of green soft armor, and the iron spear in his hand was confiscated by Qin Yen. He was not qualified to bring weapons into Zhe Tian Hall. Luo Xian greets Your Highness. After Luo Xian came to Su Muyun's side, he cupped his hands and bowed to Qin Yin. Immediately, Feng Jixing, Xiangyu, and the rest were slightly displeased. A commoner entering Zhe Tian Hall was actually not allowed to kneel. Did Su Muyun not teach him? Cough cough, Su Muyun looked at Luo Xian and said in a low voice, Greetings, Empress. You must kneel. Luo Xian hesitated for a while before slowly kneeling down and said, Luo Xian, greet Your Highness. Qin Yin raised her hand and said, You may rise. I heard that you are my grandfather's adopted son, so you are considered my uncle. Luo Xian, since grandfather recommended you as a general, then I will test you on the spot. Please enlighten me, Your Highness. Among the military books that have been passed down for a long time in the empire, Xiang Wentian's 9 Scrolls of Victorious Tactics is the most famous. Have you read it before? No, no. Luo Xian cupped his fists and said. Then, what about positional warfare? You should have heard of the Jianghu tactics, the invigorating army tactics, and the horned dragon tactics, right? No, I haven't, Luo Xian said calmly. Qin Yin was a little stunned. She looked at Su Muyun and said, Grandfather, did Xiao Yin's uncle not learn any military books? Su Muyun cupped his fists and said, Your Highness, although Luo Xian is not proficient in the art of war, he is very strong and is worthy to be the commanding general. I dare say that there are not many generals in this hall who are Luo Xian's match. Oh. Qin Yin's interest was piqued. She smiled and said, Luo Xian, what have you learned? I will follow master and cultivate the purple dragon incantation and purple dragon spear technique. Luo Xian's eyes were filled with pride as he said, Since my adoptive father recommended me as a general, I will not disappoint him. If Your Highness doesn't believe me, you can order the other generals to challenge me. If I lose, I will immediately leave Lanyan City and be too ashamed to hold any military position. Isn't he too arrogant? Tang Xiaoxi frowned. Xiang Yu frowned. He could sense that Luo Xian's aura was very strong, but he did not know exactly how strong it was. Su Muyun cupped his fists and said, If Your Highness wishes to see Luo Xian's cultivation, you can move to the open space outside the hall to watch the duel. All right. Qin Yin nodded. Move out of Zhe Tian Hall. The cold wind howled in the harsh winter, causing Qin Yin's golden robe to flutter violently. She was escorted by a group of guards and female officials to the outside of the hall. A group of generals also surrounded the square, and the Imperial Guard stood guard outside. Luo Xian stood in the center with his iron spear in hand. He cupped his fists and said, "All the generals can come and challenge me. Luo Xian can fight 10 people in a row." Bullsh *T. Zhang Wei had a bad temper. He unsheathed his sword and said, "I'm afraid the first person will be able to defeat you. You pale-faced boy, eat my sword." Swoosh! The blade of the sword cut through the wind, and flames enshrouded the sword. Zhang Wei had been cultivating with Feng Jixing for many years. Although he could not catch up to Lin Muyu and Feng Jixing's realm, he could be considered an expert in the imperial court. Looking at the momentum of Zhang Wei's sword, Luo Xian could not help but smile faintly. She kicked the tip of the iron spear with her left foot, and with a bang, the iron spear was already in her hand. The tip of the spear was pointed at Zhang Wei's sword from afar. With a clang, sparks flew everywhere. A faint fighting energy shook the square, and Zhang Wei's sword was directly sent flying. Bastard! Zhang Wei flew into a rage out of humiliation. He swung his iron fist, and the power of his martial spirit danced around his fist. It was the fiery soul fist. The corner of Luo Xian's mouth curled up. With a clang sound, the handle of the long spear pierced into the bricks. She leaped forward, and with a single arm, a faint purple dragon martial spirit lingered around it. The moment she came into contact with Zhang Wei's fist, she turned her fist into a palm. Pung! An energy shockwave spread out, but Zhang Wei's fist was caught by his opponent. No matter how hard he tried, he could not shake it off. Luo Xian's face was full of smiles. She moved forward, and with a cross of her hands, she slammed into Zhang Wei's chest. Pung! Zhang Wei was sent flying, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. At the moment of impact, Luo Xian's arms were covered with a fiery red king's dough flame. The impact was enough to injure Zhang Wei. Smelly brat! Zhang Wei flipped over, and the blood on the corner of his mouth was about to drip onto the ground. But at this time, Feng Jixing said in a low voice, "Old Zhang, get back here. You've already lost." Zhang Wei's body trembled as he stood in place. His face was ashen. Feng Jixing said, "Don't say any more. His strength is far above yours. Get back here." "Yes, Commander." However, only a few people saw the king's dough flame that Luo Xian displayed in the blink of an eye. Feng Jixing and Xiang Yu were both Holy King realm cultivators, so they could naturally capture this detail. And Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi, whose cultivations weren't low, also saw it. Luo Xian stood proudly in the field and said indifferently, "So the deputy commander of the Imperial Guard, the Great Captaincy, only has this ability. Who else is there? Feel free to try." Feng Jixing looked at Xiang Yu from afar and said, "Marquis Pingnan, as the descendant of a famous general, is even praised by the army as the empire's god of war. Don't tell me you don't want to test this little General Luo Xian's strength?" Xiang Yu looked coldly at Feng Jixing and said, "General Feng, as the Marquis of Yunzhong and the commander of the Imperial Guard, you are the most suitable person to challenge this little General Luo Xian." "Pay." Feng Jixing secretly spat. This bastard Xiang Yu clearly doesn't have confidence in Luo Xian's victory. That's why he's declining here. Zheng Yifan squinted his eyes and asked, "Little General Luo Xian, I wonder if your martial soul, is it the legendary founding General Luo Tonghai's martial soul, the first-grade purple dragon?" Luo Xian cupped his fists. "Yes, this lord has a good eye." Zheng Yifan couldn't help but stroke his beard and laugh. Luo Tonghai's martial soul is the exclusive martial soul of the Luo family's bloodline. This little General Luo Xian must be Luo Tonghai's descendant. How rare. Luo Xian said, "I don't want to rely on my ancestors' reputation to obtain any title. I only want to rely on this spear in my hand to gain some fame." "Good, good, good," Zheng Yifan praised. Among the group of generals, the few generals from the Longdan army camp all had indignant expressions on their faces. Situ Shue's beautiful face was cold. She pressed her hand on the hilt of her sword and said, This fellow is so arrogant because Commander Yu isn't in Lanyan City. If Commander Yu is here, I'd like to see how he can resist Commander Yu's stellar sword. I'm afraid that spear won't be enough. Fengshi said in a low voice, don't tell me we're just going to let him laugh at our empire for having no one capable. Dang. Situ Sen's sword was already unsheathed. He leapt forward and said, since everyone has declined, Situ Sen, we'll test this little General Luo Xian's ability. Come. Good. Luo Xian could see that Situ Sen had the power of a heavenly emperor. He could be considered a good opponent. She was excited and rushed forward with her spear. She swung the spearhead, and with the power of her battle aura, she aimed straight at Situ Sen's chest. Good. The opponent's aura was too strong, and it forced Situ Sen to take several steps back. He stomped on the ground with his left foot and rotated to release the force. He activated the revolving heart technique and swung his sword to form a whirlwind of energy, causing Luo Xian's spearhead to miss its target. He lifted his battle boot and kicked the spear. Pung! Luo Xian hurriedly parried and took 2 steps back. Her face was full of surprise. What an exquisite martial art. There's more. The wind whirled. Situ Sen held his sword with both hands and leapt up. His body was in midair, and the blade pointed to the sky. Suddenly, the sky and earth darkened. Countless star power was concentrated in the sword. Situ Sen slashed down with great force, initial star aura. Oh my god. Feng Jixing was stunned. Isn't this you use star aura technique? Luo Xian was also stunned. This time, he did not hold back. The king's battle aura surged around his body, and his spear struck straight at Situ Sen's sword. Dang! Sparks flew everywhere. Under the strong impact of the king's battle aura, Situ Sen immediately spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backward. Luo Xian's strength stopped. A small amount of star power surged into his arms, and his battle aura was almost unable to circulate. His face was slightly pale, and he was secretly amazed. This mysterious star power was indeed extraordinary. Sha, his boots slid far away. Situ Sen was in a sorry state. He stabbed his sword into the bricks on the ground to stop his retreat. He couldn't help but say with a pale face, King's battle aura. This King. At this moment, a clear voice came, General Situ, this person is a Holy King Realm warrior. You step back. Let the Holy King Realm warriors deal with him. Situ Sen looked up and saw Feng Jixing's battle robe fluttering in the wind. The wind cutter in his hand had already been unsheathed, and Situ Sen was standing in the cold wind with his back facing him. At this moment, Situ Sen was actually a little touched. Feng Jixing's figure had never been so great as at this moment. Goo goo, what the hell was this sound? Situ Sen was puzzled. Swoosh swoosh. The Law of Wind's king's battle aura rapidly danced around his sword. Feng Jixing smiled slightly and said, Imperial Guard Commander Feng Jixing, may I be so bold as to ask Little General to give me some pointers? This was a truly tyrannical opponent. Luo Xian couldn't help but become serious. She raised her spear with both hands, and a fierce wind blew around her. The purple dragon marshal's soul clearly lingered around her body. Her aura and domain instantly rose to the peak. Peng peng peng, the surrounding floor tiles cracked and exploded one after another. The collision of the 2 great experts' domain pressure was already shocking enough before the 2 great experts even made a move. Everyone retreated to avoid being accidentally injured by the flying rocks. Your Highness, be careful. Shangguan Jingyue hurriedly said. Qin Yin didn't say a word. She spread out her saint domain and formed an invisible wall 2 meters in front of her. Dang dang dang, all the flying rocks were blocked. Tang Xiaoxi stood in front of Tang Lan to protect her. Her beautiful dress fluttered even though there was no wind. A scorching wind wall appeared in front of her, and the flying rocks instantly turned into ashes when they hit the wind wall. The leader of the 4 heroes of Lan and Yen, Feng Jixing. Luo Xian's face was full of a sneer. I will defeat you. Chapter 550. The flame wolf howled, and lightning soared into the sky. In the blink of an eye, Feng Jixing's figure could no longer be seen on the plaza of Zhe Tian Palace. All that could be seen was the raging wind and the soaring lightning around him. Everyone, including Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi, had no choice but to retreat. Feng Jixing's cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds over the past 2 years. No one had ever seen him use his full strength. Good fellow, Luo Xian squinted her eyes. She was not intimidated by Feng Jixing's aura. The purple dragon martial spirit soared into the sky, like a divine dragon spiraling in the sky. Amidst the resplendent rays of light, traces of lightning soared into the sky. Like Feng Jixing, Luo Xian also cultivated the laws of lightning. However, Feng Jixing cultivated wind, lightning, and fire, while Luo Xian only cultivated the laws of lightning. Amidst the raging wind, a saber light swept over. Feng Jixing had already made his move, scorching golden sand. A strand of fiery saber chi rushed over. Before it even reached Luo Xian's face was already burning hot. Dragon lightning breakthrough. Luo Xian roared angrily. Her spear pierced out, bringing with it a strand of vast lightning energy. The spear light actually transformed into a dragon-shaped lightning bolt that tore apart the wind storm that Feng Jixing had condensed. Dang! When the blade of the spear collided with the wind-cutter saber, Feng Jixing's face was filled with battle intent. Wielding the saber with both hands, he swept it forward, causing Luo Xian's spear to lose its aim. He raised his battle boots and kicked out with a combination of fire, lightning, and wind, desert gale. Good timing. Luo Xian actually laughed heartily. She suddenly raised her body and dodged Feng Jixing's sharp kick. Just as Feng Jixing's powerful kick flew past, Luo Xian flipped over and swept her leg toward her opponent's lower body. The power of the purple dragon was contained in her battle boots, shattering the stone tiles on the ground. The strength of this kick was definitely not weak. Feng Jixing leaped into the air, and the image of the purple electric flame wolf's head appeared on his blade. He then slashed down at Luo Xian from high above. Luo Xian stood up and slowly spread her legs apart. She lowered her center of gravity and raised her spear with both arms. This move had to be parried. Feng Jixing's attack was too fierce. Pung! The swords and spears created a shockwave that blew away the snow that had yet to be swept away. It also made a group of ministers retreat one after another. Each and every one of them could barely open their eyes. A scorching hot power revolved around the spear's body. Luo Xian endured the burning pain and struggled to thrust the spear into the sky. In an instant, the sky was filled with the phantom images of the spear, making it difficult to distinguish the real from the fake. Unable to land on the ground, Feng Jixing could only rely on his battle flames to balance himself. He held his saber in front of his chest and unleashed his ultimate technique, blade dance. Ding ding dang dang dang, sounds rang out in the air. The wind-cutter saber's blade radiance continued to descend onto the ground, leaving terrifying blade scars on the ground. Most of the blade chi landed on Luo Xian's battle armor, and the scales condensed by the purple dragon marshal's soul were being disintegrated inch by inch. At the same time, the spear radiance that was imbued with the purple dragon's light also struck Feng Jixing's body. Buzz buzz buzz, a series of Buddhist chants swept across the earth. The protective aura around Feng Jixing was extremely dense, and Luo Xian's determined spear projections were unable to penetrate even an inch into it. What kind of aura is this? Instead, it was Luo Xian's arms that felt numb from the shock. He was filled with suspicions as he concentrated all his strength on the spearhead and struck towards Feng Jixing's chest. Bam! The rebound force from the protective aura sent Luo Xian flying, and Feng Jixing was finally able to land on the ground. He gathered his battle flames again and charged at his opponent with a roar. The power of his saber soared into the sky, and he slashed out with his saber, creating a storm, heaven-devouring demonic saber. A chill ran down Luo Xian's spine, and he actually felt timid. That's right, he had a premonition that he was going to lose, but he couldn't lose face here. Ha! Luo Xian stabbed his spear into the ground and raised his palms. A purple dragon poured into his body, and his battle flames formed a shield. He was actually using his palms to block Feng Jixing's saber projections. Bam! The floor tiles were torn to shreds, and a third of the plaza was destroyed in an instant. Luo Xian stood where he was, looking battered and exhausted. The soft armor on his body had been sliced to pieces by the blade light, revealing the powerful muscles of his upper body. Although it was winter, his body was covered in sweat, and steam rose from his body. There was even a hint of excitement on his face. It seemed like Feng Jixing's heaven-devouring demonic saber wasn't that strong. Come on, Feng Jixing. Show me what you've got. Luo Xian laughed loudly, and the purple dragon martial spirit around him roared endlessly. The more he fought, the more courageous he became. Feng Jixing's arm that was holding the saber was trembling slightly, and his face was ashen. The only reason he couldn't attack in a hurry was because of his stamina. His stamina was running out, and he couldn't use the king's battle flames and the protective aura of the diamond. General Feng, what's wrong? Situ Shui couldn't help but ask. I'm fine. Feng Jixing waved his hand as he complained in his heart, if I'm full, I'll beat the crap out of you. But I'm so hungry. There was no other way. For the sake of the Imperial Army and the Empire's reputation, he had to fight. With a wave of his saber, Feng Jixing pounced forward again, and a storm surged into the sky as he clashed with Luo Xian. In the end, the two of them fought back and forth. After exchanging over 100 moves, they were still evenly matched. However, those with slightly higher cultivations could feel that Feng Jixing's domain aura was gradually decreasing. On the contrary, Luo Xian's aura was getting stronger and stronger, showing signs of surpassing Feng Jixing's. Dang! When the saber and spear collided, Feng Jixing's arm went numb, and he couldn't muster any strength. The windcutter saber would have flown out of his hand. Damn it! Feng Jixing cursed as he retreated dozens of meters, and he used the saber as a support to stabilize himself. He raised his palm towards Luo Xian and shouted, "Stop! I'm done. I'm done." Lightning danced around Luo Xian, and she said with a smile, "The winner hasn't been decided yet, why is General Feng stopping?" Feng Jixing's face was pale, and he said, "Wait until I'm full." So, General Feng admitted defeat? I didn't admit defeat. Feng Jixing shouted in a low voice. Su Muyun gently stroked his beard and said with a smile, "Since General Feng didn't admit defeat, then let's fight again, until a winner is decided." You! Feng Jixing was infuriated. At this moment, Qin Yin stepped onto the pockmarked battlefield and said, "Forget it. Since Commander Feng has lost, so be it. It's just a loss for today." She could also see that Feng Jixing was not in his best condition. If it was Feng Jixing in the past, it would be hard to predict the outcome. Even if he couldn't beat Luo Xian, he would definitely not lose. Qin Yin knew Feng Jixing's strength too well. "So, I won?" Luo Xian couldn't help laughing. "Father, did you see that? I defeated the head of the 4 heroes of Lan Yan, Feng Jixing." "Ha ha ha. The 4 heroes of Lan Yan are not as powerful as I thought." Qin Yin was very angry when she heard that. "What did you say?" Qin Yan was already carrying his iron spear and preparing to go into battle. Right at this time, a fiery red figure suddenly flew over, sticking close to the ground. Before Luo Xian could react, he was already looking at him at close range. It was Tang Xiaoxi. She had already entered the 9-tailed transformation state. 9 flame tails danced in the air behind her, and the raging flames rose sharply. She raised her right hand backward, and a golden mark flowed in her palm. She said with a slight smile, "Do you dare to take one of my moves?" "You!" Luo Xian was startled by this beautiful demon fox girl in front of him. But seeing that the flames lingering around her body were actually also King's battle flames, he was even more shocked for a moment. He hurriedly raised both palms, forming a round shield, assuming a defensive posture, and said in a low voice, "Do you think I'm scared of you?" 10th level, Cosmic Seal. Tang Xiaoxi smiled sweetly. Pung. The Cosmic Seal's radiance rose sharply, and the piercingly cold energy instantly broke through Luo Xian's protective aura. His body was blasted away from his original spot like a falling leaf, rolling into a pile of rubble. If it wasn't for Tang Xiaoxi temporarily restraining more than 70% of her power, Luo Xian would probably have died under this attack. "Princess Shi, you." Su Muyun turned pale with fright. Tang Xiaoxi slowly returned to her human form, waved her hand to disperse the power of the fire god's seal, and said with a smile, "You can't even take one of my moves. What qualifications do you have to mock the wind, rain, thunder, and lightning?" Luo Xian slowly crawled up from the mess, and his face was pale. I only lost to you because I exhausted a lot of energy. When I recover my strength, I will naturally challenge you again." However, Qin Yin raised her eyebrows. "Insolence. Shao Shi is the Empire's princess. Luo Xian, you don't have any title yet. If you say such insolent words again, don't blame me for not giving grandfather face." Su Muyun also frowned and said, "Luo Xian, come to foster father's side. Don't speak nonsense anymore." "Yes." Luo Xian walked over with his spear in a sorry state. Although defeating Feng Jixing was enough to make him famous, Tang Xiaoxi took the opportunity to defeat him. The reputation that he had painstakingly won was inevitably going to be greatly reduced. Su Muyun cupped his fists and said, "Your Highness, Luo Xian has been cultivating in the mountains for decades and has not experienced the world. I hope that your Highness can forgive him for his disrespect. However, it is true that Luo Xian possesses peerless martial arts and is loyal to the Empire. Therefore, I hope that your Highness can put him in an important position." "Yes, I know. Grandfather, what kind of title do you hope to give to Luo Xian?" Su Muyun said, "I think I want to let Luo Xian lead the Iron Blade Army in Yinzhong Province, starting from the rank of Chiliarch. When he has a certain level of commanding ability, I will hand over the Iron Blade Army to him. After all, grandfather is old and can no longer lead thousands of troops. If your Highness doesn't mind, please bestow the title of Marquis to my godson." Ah! Qin Yin was stunned. Situ Sun, who was not far away, laughed and said, "Your Highness, do you know how long it took for Commander Lin Muyu to rise from a low-class noble to Marquis Yunling? It took a full 4 years, and he used the achievement of drowning 70,000 armored demons in exchange for the title of Marquis Yunling. Moreover, he is the godson of the former emperor. May I ask? Luo Xian has not made any contributions, so what right does he have to be conferred the title of Marquis?" Su Muyun's face instantly fell. Qin Yin smiled and walked forward. She held Su Muyun's arm and said sweetly, "Grandfather, let's talk about conferring the title of Marquis in the future. Since Luo Xian has already joined the Empire's army, there will be plenty of opportunities for him to make contributions in the future. For now, let's give him the position of Chiliarch and the status of a 4th-class noble. What do you think, grandfather?" Since the Empress had given him a way out, Su Muyun naturally wouldn't refuse. He smiled and said, "Yes, I will listen to your Highness's arrangements." Chapter 551. In the early morning of the dragon-seeking forest, snow filled the sky by the Cloud Dragon Lake. The temperature was getting colder and colder, so much so that many soldiers had already fallen ill from the cold. Smoke rose from the chimneys of the tents by the lake, and the people of the spiritual fire department were boiling medicinal soup to ward off the cold. Outside the tent, a group of flaming black tortoises were squeaking and crawling on the snowy ground. They were like large dogs, and they would spit out mouthfuls of flames as a show of force. These were all tamed flaming black tortoises. Although they had already fused with the divine temple staff of the beast taming department, the degree of fusion was not very high, and they still maintained an extremely violent temperament. Rustle, rustle, snowflakes danced in the air and landed on her shoulder armor. Lin Muyu leaned on her astral sword and looked at the group of blazing mystic tortoises. She frowned and asked, "What's wrong with them?" Wei Chou crossed his arms and said, "They're hungry. These flaming black tortoises were planning to sleep for the entire winter, but we woke them up. That's why they're complaining that they're hungry. Milord, we need to find food for these flaming black tortoises. Otherwise, I suspect they'll break free and become wild spiritual beasts again." Lin Muyu nodded. Looking at the frenzied flaming black tortoises, it was indeed very likely that they would break free and betray the alliance. They had to think of a solution as soon as possible. However, all the bloodthirsty tigers within a radius of several dozen kilometers had been killed. Furthermore, ferocious beasts roamed the area. Wild boars, rabbits, badgers, and muntjac, which did not have strong offensive power, would not appear. The flaming black tortoises were not to be trifled with. They wanted to eat meat, so food would be a huge problem. After a quick count, the Longdan army camp had already tamed 97 flaming black tortoises. They were only 3 away from 100, and they were almost done. In order to prepare for future losses in the war, it would be best to capture a few more. It seemed like they would have to spend another day by the Cloud Dragon Lake before returning to Lanyan City. Furthermore, this weather, Lin Muyu looked up at the heavy snow flying all over the sky and couldn't help sighing. It was estimated that the heavy snow had blocked the mountain. It was really difficult to go back to Lanyan City. Now she needed to consider the fodder for the horses and the food for the winter. Bai Yin quietly appeared beside him and said, "Commander, even if we want to pass the winter, we shouldn't do it by the Cloud Dragon Lake. There's a shortage of food here. We should enter the mountains and find a place to hide for the winter. Then, we can search for provisions and food for the winter. Let's catch 100 blazing black tortoises first." "Yes." After the sky was completely bright, the team set off. As usual, Lin Muyu used the Spirit Meridian technique to find the habitat of the blazing black tortoises. She dug out the hibernating blazing black tortoises and tamed them. While a group of soldiers from the Longdan army camp were digging with shovels, Wei Chou had already led a group of people to break the ice of the shallow waters of the Cloud Dragon Lake. They started to break the ice and catch fish to feed the captured blazing black tortoises. These black tortoises had a huge appetite. In just 3 days, they had almost finished all the meat they had brought. The people from the Divine Temple naturally didn't fish like fishermen. Wei Chou held a longbow in his hand and stepped into the ice-cold lake with his combat boots. He closed his eyes and felt the movement of the fish in the mud. He tied a string to the tail of the arrow and pulled back a fat fish with every arrow he shot. Other than Wei Chou, there were even more people stabbing in the water with their spears and harvesting a lot. The hibernating fish were thrown onto the snowy ground, causing a group of blazing black tortoises to fight over them. However, not long after, there was a sudden howl. A soldier from the Longdan army camp was suddenly dragged into the water by something. Blood surged in the lake amidst the howl, and there were sounds of ice breaking in the distance. "There's something under the water." Wei Chou turned pale with fright. He hurriedly drew his longbow and shouted, "Everyone, come ashore. Everyone, come ashore." Hiss, hiss, a long hissing sound came from the lake. Amidst the loud bangs, a half-meter thick layer of ice shattered, and a huge creature crawled out of the water. Its body was covered in indigo scales, and it had a ferocious head swaying in the air. On the other hand, it had 8 long and sharp blade-like arms. The blade-like arms were stained with the clothes of the dead soldiers of the Valiant Dragon Battalion. This was none other than a 4,500-year-old frost-armored horned dragon. Bastard! Wei Chou was enraged. He raised his hand and shot an arrow. The arrow pierced through one of the frost-armored horned dragon's arms with a paw. Blue blood gushed out. Unfortunately, it couldn't seriously injure the frost-armored horned dragon. The power of an arrow was too insignificant for a huge creature like the frost-armored horned dragon. Frost-armored horned dragon? Lin Muyu was taken aback as well. She hurriedly flew over and suppressed the frost-armored horned dragon's violence with her Saint Realm aura. She then shouted, "Wei Qiu, don't kill it yet. Someone, come and try to tame this frost-armored horned dragon." As she spoke, the golden gourd vines rose from the shallow mud and bound the frost-armored horned dragon's head and 8 lethal arms. The frost-armored horned dragon was the overlord of the water and had a violent temperament to begin with. It roared madly and kicked its 4 legs in the water with all its might. But how could it break free from the restraints of a holy king like Lin Muyu? "Let me do it." Wei Qiu walked forward with a frosty expression. He abruptly smashed his fist into the frost-armored horned dragon's ugly skull, venting its anger at the fact that it had killed its subordinate. Wei Qiu couldn't help but feel apprehensive when he felt the intense pain from his fist. The frost armor on the frost-armored horned dragon's body was indeed extremely hard. No wonder the white drill arrow was unable to cause any damage to it. Slowly opening his palm, Wei Qiu activated the psychic art. He quietly tried to communicate with the frost-armored horned dragon. After a few seconds, his E-high was filled with ferocious waves. Wei Qiu trembled all over. He could feel the hunger, violence, and fear of the frost-armored horned dragon. Humans were afraid of the frost-armored horned dragon, but the frost-armored horned dragon was equally afraid of the humans who traveled freely on land. It was precisely because of this that the frost-armored horned dragon would recklessly attack humans. After nearly a minute, the frost-armored horned dragon finally calmed down. Its head drooped beside Wei Qiu's shoulder and its blue eyes blinked as it looked at Wei Qiu, Lin Muyu, and the others. The psychic art was a success. The frost-armored horned dragon and Wei Qiu were now telepathically connected. In its eyes, Lin Muyu and the others were no longer a threat. "That's enough, my lord," Wei Qiu said after taking a deep breath. Lin Muyu waved her hand and the golden gourd vines turned into martial spirit energy and dissipated in the air. The huge frost-armored horned dragon wriggled its 4 sturdy legs and followed Wei Qiu onto the land. Even though it was moving very slowly, it had proven that the frost-armored horned dragon could survive on land. It was just that its combat strength was greatly reduced. This was the first time anyone had seen a complete frost-armored horned dragon. It had a long tail behind its body that was covered with caudal fins. These caudal fins helped it swim quickly in the water. Its abdomen and mouth were all joined together, like a huge disc. 9 limbs were erected on top of the disc. One was its neck and head, while the other 8 were blades that were as hard and sharp as steel. Bai Yin tightened his cloak to ward off the cold and said, "My lord, this frost-armored horned dragon has very limited combat strength on land. With its slow speed, I suspect that it might not even be a match for an armored demon in a one-on-one fight." Lin Muyu shot a glance at the frost-armored horned dragon and said, "Its true battlefield is underwater. Bai Yin, you haven't experienced the Battle of the Padeo River, so you don't know that the demon race has an army called the Mastiffs. The demon race's navy is much stronger than ours. If we can tame a navy made up of frost-armored horned dragons, then we won't have to fear the Mastiffs anymore." "Yes, my lord. I admire your foresight." After Wei Qiu's soul fused with the first frost-armored horned dragon, it wasn't difficult to capture others. Using the signal emitted by the first frost-armored horned dragon, one after another, frost-armored horned dragons appeared on land. They were captured and tamed one by one. After an entire day, Lin Muyu's expeditionary force captured over 20 blazing black tortoises and 50 frost-armored horned dragons. Mission accomplished. However, the frost-armored horned dragon was also a carnivore, and its appetite was enormous. This made food even more of a problem. After nightfall, Wei Qiu guarded the camp while Lin Muyu led 100 people out on horseback to hunt. It wasn't until late at night that the sound of hooves could be heard from the shore of the Cloud Dragon Lake. The hunting party had returned. The warhorses dragged the carcasses of wolves, wild boars, and chamois. Wei Qiu beamed at the sight. "That's great. My lord, this food is enough for us to eat for 2 days." Lin Muyu couldn't bring herself to smile. She brushed off the snow on her shoulders and said, we've brought back all the prey within a 30-kilometer radius. We'll be leaving the Cloud Dragon Lake tomorrow morning. We're almost done with all the food here. Yes. The next day, the snow finally lessened. Early in the morning, after eating their fill, the 500-strong party slowly left the Cloud Dragon Lake. They brought along 120 blazing black tortoises and 50 frost-armored horned dragons. This was a fruitful trip. The frost-armored horned dragons moved very slowly on land. Their 4 legs crawled on the ground, but their tails swayed back and forth as if they were swimming in the water. It looked very stupid, but there was nothing they could do. They could only walk at their own pace. It was already not bad if they could cover 100 kilometers in a day. They moved slowly like this. In the blink of an eye, 5 days had passed. The party arrived at the mountain range at the edge of the dragon-seeking forest. However, the snow had already sealed off the path they came from. Nearly 5 meters of snow blocked the 5-kilometer-long valley, making it impossible for the party to advance any further. Are we really going to wait for spring to come in the dragon-seeking forest? Wei Chou said helplessly. Bai Yin said, perhaps. Otherwise, what else can we do? Unless the gods descend to the world and bring spring back to all living things. Bring spring back to all living things. Lin Muyu remained silent. My lord, do you have a solution? Wei Chou asked. Lin Muyu nodded happily. Bai Yin's words have reminded me. Let's set up camp here tonight. We can return to Lanyan City after the snow melts tomorrow morning. Oh. Why would the snow melt? Wei Chou raised his head to look at the fine snow drifting in the air. It was freezing cold all around him. He smiled bitterly and said, I'll thank the heavens if the snow doesn't get thicker and thicker. At that moment, Lin Muyu took out a steel sword from her cosmos sack. With a light flick of her wrist, she activated it. Whoosh! An indigo ray of light shot into the sky. The energy of the world had already been activated. It was the medium-quality heavenly tome of the law of life that Lin Muyu had obtained from killing the ghost general in the forest of heavenly tome monoliths. With the activation of the heavenly tome, a ripple swept through the entire valley. The temperature rapidly rose, and the sound of snow melting could be heard. Wei Chou, Bai Yin, and the others were all dumbfounded. None of them could say a word. Chapter 552. Yunzhong Province. The sound of horses' hooves echoed in the valley. This was the garrison of the Yunzhong Province's Iron Blade Army, but it was also very close to Cangnan Province's Wugu City. As the sun rose, the morning light shone on the cavalryman's armor, giving off a mesmerizing glow. There were 4 people standing on the platform. They were Su Muyun, Su Yu, Su Long, and Luo Xian, who had just joined the Iron Blade Army. At this time, Luo Xian was wearing a silver robe that was specially made. His white robe was fluttering in the wind, and he was holding an iron spear in his hand. This is the Iron Blade Army. Su Muyun squinted his eyes and said, one of the most elite cavalrymen in the empire. The Iron Blade Army still maintains a formation of 50,000 cavalrymen and 70,000 infantrymen. In terms of numbers, they are one of the best in the empire. Yu has improved the weapons and shields used by the Iron Blade Army many times in the past 2 years to increase their fighting power, but the Iron Blade Army is no longer the strongest army in the empire. Luo Xian was stunned. Such a strong Iron Blade Army is still not the strongest in the empire? Then who is? Currently, the publicly acknowledged strongest army in the empire is Lin Muyu's valiant dragon army. There are a total of 60,000 of them, and their equipment is second to none in the continent. Their military strength is also witnessed by everyone. Su Yu smiled faintly and said, the brave dragon battalion defeated the first demon legion at the Wildfire Plains with almost negligible losses, forcing the first demon commander, Qian Feng, to return in defeat. It is precisely because of this that the brave dragon battalion is the legion that the Empress trusts the most. Luo Xian's eyes were full of fighting spirit. Father, don't worry. I will definitely follow Sister Su Yu and Uncle Long to learn the art of war. I will make the Iron Blade Army the strongest army in the world, surpassing the Longdan army camp. Good. Su Muyun nodded and smiled. This is what I wanted to hear. Now, I will give you your first order. Luo Xian immediately cupped his hands. Father, please give me your order. I will give you 5,000 cavalrymen. You must take back a black gold mine from a group of bandits before sunset. Mountain obsidian gold mine? Luo Xian was stunned. I have seen the map. Qishan belongs to the territory of Cangnan province. It is under the jurisdiction of the governor of Wugu City, Su Jiantao, and Su Jiantao is Lin Muyu's man. That's right. Su Muyun said, there are very few profound gold mines within the empire's borders, and most of them are mined privately. Mount Qi is located at the border between Cangnan province and Yunzhong province, and its sovereignty has always been unclear. Furthermore, Su Jiantao has too few troops under his command, so he sent a group of less than 2,000 mercenaries to mine at Mount Qi. Since that's the case, we'll just treat this group of mercenaries as bandits and eliminate them, and take the Mount Qi's profound gold mine for ourselves. Yes, I understand. The sun had completely risen above the horizon and shone on Su Muyun and Su Yu's faces. Su Yu was slightly displeased after hearing Su Muyun's words. She waited until Luo Xian rode away before saying, Father, Yu is Xiao Yin's man. Us making such a big fuss is no different from provoking him. Provoking? Su Muyun looked at his daughter indifferently and said, how many people from the Su family are still being used by His Highness in the Zetian Palace? If we don't consolidate our strength, I'm afraid that Tang Lan will be able to quietly destroy our Yunzhong province without a trace before Xiao Yin makes a move. The profound gold mine is extremely important to any power. In the future, whoever controls the heavenly book will have great power. Su Yu wanted to say something but stopped herself. Helplessness was written all over her charming face. 3 days later, after tossing and turning, Lin Muyu's 500 men finally returned to Lanyan City. Situ Sen and Situ Shui led 5,000 men from the Longdan army camp out of the city to welcome them. When they saw a group of frost-armored dragons and blazing black tortoises, they were immediately shocked. Commander, is this the legendary frost-armored dragon? Situ Sen held the hilt of his sword and looked at Wei Chao's spirit pet with caution. Huff. Huff, the frost-armored dragon seemed to have sensed Situ Sen's hostility. It immediately moved its head over and spat out a frosty breath at Situ Sen's face. Streaks of ice fell down his face. Immediately, Situ Sen pulled out his sword and said angrily, lightning-throwing Lu Mao, you bastard, how dare you spit at me? Wei Chou glared and said, General Sen, this is my spirit pet. Don't provoke it. Situ Sen laughed and put his arm around Wei Chou's shoulder. He said, Chou, do you have any extra frost-armored dragons? Why don't you give one to me and I'll treat you to a drink? Wei Chou widened his eyes and said, my name is Wei Chou, not Ah Chou. What's the difference? We shouldn't haggle over every penny. Our lives are too tiring. Ah Chou, I'll treat you to 3 drinks in exchange for a frost-armored dragon. If you want to catch one, go ahead. Situ Shui giggled at the side. She didn't care about Situ Sen and Wei Chao's nonsense. She rode to Lin Muyu's side and said with a respectful smile, Commander, you've worked hard. General Shui has also worked hard in training the soldiers, Lin Muyu said with a smile. Situ Shui looked at the group of spirit pets behind her and said, if so many behemoths were to enter Lanyan City, I'm afraid that the common people would be frightened. Milord, do you really want to bring these frost-armored dragons into the imperial capital? I'm afraid that even the imperial army guarding the city would not agree to it. Of course not. Lin Muyu smiled and said, I've already thought about it. The frost-armored dragons can't leave the water for too long. Otherwise, they will lose their vitality. Therefore, General Shui, please send people to dig a lake beside the encampment outside the Longdan army camp. Let's call it the Dragon Pond. It will be the habitat of the frost-armored dragons. In the future, if we have more aquatic spirit pets, we can also raise them in the dragon pond. Yes, Your Majesty. Situ Shui smiled and said, with so many spirit pets, I'm afraid we'll need a lot of food. Do you need me to take care of this? That would be best. Yes. Situ Shui held the reins and thought for a moment. Then she said, there's one thing that I don't know if I should tell you, Your Majesty. Say it. What is it? Lin Muyu asked in surprise. Situ Shui said, recently, Cloud King Su Muyun adopted a son called Luo Xian. His cultivation is at the Holy King realm. He consecutively defeated Zhang Wei, my brother Situ Sen, and Commander Feng Jixing in Zai Tian Palace. He defeated Big Brother Feng? Lin Muyu was slightly stunned. That's impossible. Big Brother Feng's cultivation is very pure. Even if his opponent is at the Holy King realm, he might not be able to defeat him, right? Maybe it's because General Feng didn't eat his fill that day. Situ Shui's expression turned cold. Then she said, this Luo Xian was appointed as the deputy commander of the Steel Blade Army by Su Muyun. 3 days ago, he led 5,000 soldiers of the Steel Blade Army to seize the profound gold mine on Mountain Qi and killed all the 2,000 mercenaries that Su Jiantao hired to guard the mine. Su Jiantao was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Now, this mountain is guarded by 3,000 soldiers of the Steel Blade Army. The Mountain Qi profound gold mine was lost? Lin Muyu was burning with anger. Her fists were surrounded by King's fighting flame. She said, where did this Luo Xian come from? How dare he be so bold? What is Su Muyun thinking? Situ Shui said, in the territory of the empire, there was no Mountain Qi at all. This Mountain Qi is actually shared by Yunzhong province and Sangnan province. In order to save the manpower of the Longdan army camp, Su Jiantao did not send the Longdan army camp to Mountain Qi. He only hired a group of mercenaries to guard the mountain. This gave Su Muyun an excuse. He claimed that he had wiped out the mountain bandits that occupied the mine. A day ago, he asked His Highness for a decree to directly transfer Mountain Qi to Yunzhong province. We suffered a loss for nothing. As she said this, Situ Shui paused. Her beautiful eyes were filled with anger. Then she said, Luo Xian's strength is very strong. He has repeatedly challenged the generals in the empire. Except for Xiangyu, the Marquis of Pingnan, he has challenged almost all the strong generals in the empire. What about Big Brother Feng? Him. Situ Jin could not help but laugh. General Feng went to the Yunzhong Palace to challenge Luo Xian after he was full. However, Luo Xian closed the door and refused to fight. He avoided General Feng's challenge time and time again. I heard that. There are rumors in the empire that Luo Xian is already the strongest in the empire. Strongest in the empire? Lin Muyu laughed. With Chu and Qin Han around, who does he think he is? Are you going to the Yunzhong Palace to challenge Luo Xian? There's no need. Lin Muyu said, once the news of my return to Lanyan City spreads, Luo Xian will definitely take the initiative to find me. Only by defeating me can he really be the strongest. Yes. After entering Zai Tian Palace to hand in the order and having dinner with Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi, Lin Muyu brought the 200 staff members of the Holy Palace back to the Holy Palace to hand in the order. The mighty group of people attracted the attention of the people on Tongtian Street. The Holy Palace was brightly lit. Guiyang held a scroll in his hand and was reading a section of a martial art mental cultivation method. Xin Yuanhong sat at the side with his eyes closed in an elderly manner. There was a hint of a leisurely smile on his lips. Lin Muyu pays her respects to the great deacon. Greetings to Deacon Guiyang. Oh. Yu is back. Xin Yuanhong stood up and glanced at Lin Muyu and the others. He smiled. It seems that Yu's cultivation has improved after this trip. It's all right. Lin Muyu smiled modestly. She said to Xin Yuanhong, Great Deacon, I have something to discuss with you and Deacon Guiyang alone. Oh, then come to the side palace. Yes. When there were only 3 people in the side palace, Lin Muyu took out the scroll she had written and said, "Great Deacon, please take a look and see if this mental cultivation method is feasible." Oh. Xianyuanhong received the scroll doubtfully. As he read it, the doubt on his face gradually dissipated and was replaced by ecstasy. He raised his head and asked, Did you write this mental cultivation method?" "This, how mysterious." Lin Muyu answered honestly, "This is the remnant scroll of the forging dragon bone that Elder Chu once gave me. I've modified and simplified it to become this. It's quite effective in cleansing the meridians and marrow. If Great Deacon thinks that it's feasible, this mental cultivation technique can be used as a cultivation technique in the holy sanctum. Any silver star sparring master or instructor can practice it." "Good." Xianyuanhong handed the scroll to Guiyang as if he had received a treasure. At this moment, a holy palace guard suddenly rushed in. He seemed to be in a sorry state. He said, "Great Deacon, someone wants to challenge Lady Lin Muyu in the holy palace. He claims to be Luo Xian from the Cloud King residence." "So fast?" Lin Muyu couldn't help but laugh. "All right, it's time for me to see this Luo Xian." Chapter 553. Torches lit up the main road in front of the Divine Temple. More than a dozen Divine Temple guards had already drawn their swords and sabers and were coldly facing the outside. Outside the hall, torches flickered. The guards of the Cloud Mansion were dressed in martial attire and were guarding the perimeter. Luo Xian was clad in silver armor and holding a spear. Her eyes were filled with arrogance as she said in a clear voice, "Commander Yu, please come out and teach me." As a deacon, although Zhenfang had lost his cultivation due to his sea of qi being destroyed, he still held a long sword and said, "The Divine Temple is a place for people who cultivate their hearts and virtue, not a place for fighting. Lin Muyu is the Marquis of Yunling and is not someone you can challenge as you please. Luo Xian, you should go back and be a deputy chiliarch." Luo Xian said with a cold face, "Zhenfang, this is none of your business. Go away. I heard that you were an expert in the past, but now that your sea of qi has been destroyed, you have become a useless person. I don't want to fight with you." "You." Zhenfang trembled with anger, but there was nothing he could do. A group of people from the Divine Temple were also filled with righteous indignation. Many of them almost cursed it out loud, but because of the Cloud Mansion's reputation, no one said anything. After all, Su Muyun's influence in Lanyan City and Yunzhong Province was too great. He was not someone ordinary people could afford to offend. The sound of footsteps came from the main hall. A few Gold Star instructors were holding torches to clear the way. Xianyuanhong and Guiyang, the 2 respected elders, were walking in front. Lin Muyu, Wei Chou, Bai Yin, and the others followed behind. Luo Xian recognized Xianyuanhong and immediately cupped her fists and said, "Greetings, Great Deacon." Xianyuanhong nodded. "Young General Luo Xian, why have you come to my Divine Temple?" "To meet Lin Muyu." Luo Xian's lips curled up. "If I don't defeat Lin Muyu, I won't be the number 1 among the younger generation in Lanyan City." Xianyuanhong laughed. "If you get the number 1, what do you plan to do next?" Luo Xian was startled. "I don't know and I don't care. I want to be the number 1 in Lanyan City and the Empire. Only then will I be worthy of my father's grace." Saying so, Luo Xian's eyes fell on Lin Muyu. As a Saint King Realm Master, he could feel Lin Muyu's powerful aura and pointed his spear directly at Lin Muyu. "Commander Yu, as the second of Lanyan's 4 heroes, don't you dare accept this Luo Xian's challenge?" Lin Muyu stepped forward and stood majestically in front of Luo Xian. Her eyes were filled with disdain as she smiled and said, "I heard that a few days ago you led your men to seize Mount Qi of Cangnan Province." Luo Muyu Lin Luo. "So what if I know? So what if I don't?" Luo Xian laughed coldly. Lin Muyu's smile widened. She raised a finger. "If you don't know, I'll beat you until you can't get out of bed for 3 days." If you know and still attack my territory, I'll beat you until you can't get out of bed for half a month. Impudent. Luo Xian gritted her teeth, her aura suddenly increased by a large margin. Her purple dragon martial spirit let out a roar and surrounded the spear. Pointing the spear at Lin Muyu, she said, "Do you dare to compete with me?" Lin Muyu turned around and looked at Xian Yuanhong respectfully. "What do you think, head deacon?" Xian Yuanhong stroked his white beard and laughed. "Stopping a war with a fight is one of the virtues of martial arts. However, I only have one thing to say to you. Please speak, head deacon. If you want to fight, go outside." "Yes." Lin Muyu cheerfully turned around and pulled out the star's sword from her back. She smiled and said, "Luo Xian, let's go out and fight. Don't damage the divine sanctum's things. The divine sanctum isn't as rich as the Cloud King residence." "As you wish." Wei Chou raised the demon-devouring bow and said with a cold expression, "Longdan army camp, clear the streets in front of the holy temple and make it a battlefield for the Lord Commander. Send out troops and forbid anyone from interfering in this duel." In an instant, hundreds of Longdan army camp's elite soldiers rushed out and formed a semicircle outside the holy temple. They faced Luo Xian's men from a distance. However, Luo Xian's men were the Cloud Palace's guards. They were obviously not as elite as the experienced Longdan army camp's elites. In terms of experience, this group of people had followed Lin Muyu from Mozong Pass in Earth Star Province to the Steel Wall and the battle in Wildfire Plains. They had experienced so much that they were no longer afraid of death. However, the people from the Cloud Palace were different. Most of them came from Cloud Province and had not experienced many battles with the demon race and Iha Kingdom. If they had, most of them had avoided battles with the defeated crowd. At this moment, the sound of hooves could be heard from afar. It was the cavalry of the valiant Dragon Legion. There were more than 1,000 of them. Under the illumination of the torches, Situ Sen and Situ Shui dismounted from their horses. They rushed over as soon as they received the news. As expected, they were in time for the duel. Situ Shui stood at the side and asked with a smile, "Commander, are you full?" Lin Muyu knew that this was Feng Jixing's joke. She could not help but laugh and patted her stomach. His Highness set up a banquet at Zetian Palace. "I'm very full. Don't worry, my duel with Luo Xian will not last more than 10 moves." Luo Xian was stunned and could not help but fly into a rage. "Lin Muyu, aren't you looking down on me too much? Do you think you are invincible just because you defeated some small fries in Lanyan City? Today, I, Luo Xian, will let you know that there is always someone better than you." "This sentence is for you." Lin Muyu smiled faintly. She waved the stellar sword in her hand and said, "Luo Xian, are you ready? If you are, I will make my move. I still have a lot of things to do and have no time to waste with you." "Okay, then let's end this quickly." Luo Xian bellowed in a low voice. His purple dragon martial spirit roared towards the sky, summoning lightning from the 9 heavens to descend upon Luo Xian's body. The suppressive might of the domain also spread out, forcing the crowd of spectators to take a few steps back. The stone tiles on the ground shattered under the influence of the lightning. It was a shocking scene. Luo Xian's body was enveloped by the lightning, growling in a low voice. He wanted to raise his strength to 100% before fighting Lin Muyu. However, Lin Muyu did not use much of her battle flame to fight against the domain. Instead, she held her stellar sword tightly and charged into the domain that Luo Xian had activated with her king's battle flame. Starlight suddenly shone brightly as Lin Muyu slashed at Luo Xian's chest cleanly. The starlight was unusually bright. The first strike of the stellar technique, first appearance of starlight. However, Lin Muyu's first appearance of starlight was completely different from Situ Sen's. It was faster and fiercer, and the power was abnormally concentrated. Almost all the star power was gathered on the sword's edge. Ah! Luo Xian had never met an opponent like this before. She did not wait for him to finish raising his chi. Moreover, her speed was too decisive. When Luo Xian's iron spear was in front of his chest, the stellar sword had already fallen. Bang! Luo Xian's face turned pale with fright when he heard the deafening screech. The spear was being eroded by the astral power, which almost made him lose his grip on the spear. The next moment, the power of the initial appearance of the astral aura exploded. Luo Xian and his spear were pushed back nearly 5 meters. The ground was full of traces of the astral power. What kind of disparity in strength was this, forcing him back with a single sword strike? Impossible. This is absolutely impossible. Luo Xian's mind was already in a mess. There was at least a 2-centimeter cut on the handle of the iron spear. If Lin Muyu attacked this part of the spear again, the iron spear would probably be cut in half. Again. Luo Xian shouted, and the purple dragon flew around him at high speed. He raised his long spear, and his body was wrapped in thick lightning. When he was less than 3 meters away, his arms shook, and countless spear lights swept out. Lin Muyu was frighteningly calm. Her left hand lightly opened, and the dragon blood battle shield was instantly formed, blocking Luo Xian's series of attacks. Suddenly, the sound of wind breaking came from behind. It was the tail of the purple dragon sweeping out. This attack was very insidious, and it caught people off guard. But Lin Muyu's spirit pulse art had already seen through it. She waved her sword, and the golden god binding chains circled around the blade, instantly disintegrating the purple dragon's tail. Ha! Luo Xian poured all her strength into her battle flames, and the attacks on the spear became more and more violent. In the blink of an eye, the dragon blood battle shield had become a sieve, and its surface was full of holes. Lin Muyu couldn't help but be shocked. This Luo Xian really was amazing. The strength of the purple dragon was so domineering. No wonder Feng Jixing lost to this kid on an empty stomach. But the moment the dragon blood battle shield shattered, Lin Muyu suddenly opened her left hand, and a dazzling ray of light soared into the sky. In an instant, Luo Xian couldn't open her eyes. All was fair in war. Although Luo Xian had cultivated with her master for many years, her combat experience was simply too immature compared to Lin Muyu. Buzz! Dark energy swirled around her left fist, and strands of ghostly power surged. Lin Muyu closed in, and her left fist shot out like lightning, directly striking the purple dragon battle armor on Luo Xian's abdomen. For Luminary's demon god cry. Bam! After shattering Luo Xian's battle armor with a single strike, Lin Muyu took advantage of the momentum of Luo Xian's retreat and activated falling star steps the moment her feet touched the ground. Her exquisite star steps flashed behind Luo Xian like a bolt of lightning. Bending her body, she lashed out with her right leg, sweeping Luo Xian's legs with the force of an autumn gale sweeping away fallen leaves. With a loud crack, Luo Xian's left leg was most likely broken. Arg! A howl of anguish rang out as Luo Xian determined Lin Muyu's position. He turned around and unleashed a fierce spear strike that was fast and vicious, and he didn't hold back in the slightest. It was a lethal strike. However, Lin Muyu had her sword in hand, and she was able to easily deflect the spear strike with just a gentle wave of her starlight sword. At the same time, she raised her body and launched a powerful elbow strike into Luo Xian's chest. Bam! The suit of battle armor that Luo Xian had condensed in such a short time was unable to withstand the blow, and with a loud crack, countless ribs were broken. Just as his body was less than 30 centimeters away from the ground, Lin Muyu raised her leg and kicked Luo Xian and his spear away as if they were a sandbag. Bam! Luo Xian's breastplate and knee pads were already shattered, and he rolled dozens of meters on the ground with his spear. He lay on the ground in a sorry state, and a mouthful of blood sprayed from his mouth. Young General! Young General! The guards of the Cloud King's mansion were already dumbfounded. Luo Xian, who had astonishingly defeated Feng Jixing in the Zhe Tian Palace, had actually been defeated by Lin Muyu in just 3 moves. Chapter 554. Cough, Cough, Luo Xian coughed out another mouthful of blood and laid there in a sorry state. Many of his ribs were broken and his left leg was definitely fractured. Lin Muyu didn't hold back at all and completely wanted him to be bedridden for half a month. After all, Mount Shi had been occupied by the Yunzhong province's army and it was impossible to take it back. They couldn't openly fight each other. Lin Muyu had to vent the anger in her heart. This Luo Xian was really unlucky to have delivered himself to her doorstep. "Young general, are you all right?" Lin Muyu stepped forward and smiled faintly. "Swords have no eyes. It was a life and death struggle just now and I may have used a bit too much force. I hope that young general can forgive me. I have a bottle of top-notch gold sore medicine here. If young general doesn't mind, please accept it. Apply it in the morning and evening and the medicine will cure your illness. This is a first-grade gold sore medicine and it can't be bought on the market." "You!" Luo Xian gritted his teeth. The two guards of the Yunzhong Wang estate tactfully accepted the bottle and respectfully said, "Many thanks to Marquis Yunling for the medicine." "What are you saying?" "His Highness the Yunzhong Wang is Xiao Yin's maternal grandfather and I am Xiao Yin's sworn brother. In other words, the Yunzhong Wang is also my maternal grandfather. Young general is already my maternal uncle. We are a family and there is no need to be so polite." While a certain person was passionately speaking, Sidu Shue's beautiful face was expressionless as she said to the Kiliarchs and generals beside her, "These are all internal injuries caused by bone fractures. What's the use of gold sore medicine? You still have to speak so much nonsense. Sir is becoming more and more shameless." The Kiliarchs respectfully nodded and didn't dare to say anything. Situsen clenched his fist and walked forward to punch Lin Muyu's arm. He smiled and said, "Commander, this beating is really satisfying. Let's see if this brat still dares to challenge others and act domineering. He even said that there is always someone better out there. Now he has been beaten up, right?" Lin Muyu said, "Lower your voice. It's not appropriate to speak in front of others." Saying that, he said to a group of imperial guards, "Hurry up and carry the young general back to the imperial residence to treat his injuries. What are you all standing here for? Do you want to eat dinner in the holy temple?" The guards cupped their fists one after another, and a few of them carried Luo Xian away in a hurry. Situsen raised his hand and laughed. "Longdan army camp, retreat." Lin Muyu also cupped her fists towards Xianyuanhong and said, "Great attendant, shall I return to camp?" "All right, you, go ahead," Xianyuanhong said with a smile. After Lin Muyu and the others left, Guiyang trembled as he held the scroll. He smiled and said, "I didn't expect you to defeat Luo Xian in 3 moves. What a surprise." Xianyuanhong said with a deep look in his eyes, "Yu's fighting style is different from ordinary people. He doesn't stick to one style, and he's just too smart. If not for his martial soul's ability and the use of his moves, I'm afraid the outcome wouldn't have been decided within 30 moves. Just look at how angry Luo Xian is." Guiyang stroked his white beard with a smile on his face. "Great attendant, Yu's current cultivation. I'm afraid it's far beyond our imagination. You don't know, but Yu's star arts and 7 luminaries' profound energy are the strongest techniques in the world. If he had used the 7 luminary stars transformation right from the start, I'm afraid Luo Xian would have been defeated in 1 move." "Yes," Xianyuanhong nodded. "Let's go, we'll study the dragon forging bone remnant scroll that you left behind. Once we've completely understood it, we'll pass it on to the other experts in the holy temple." "Yes, great attendant." Xianyuanhong couldn't help but glance in the direction of the Longdan army camp again. He didn't know when he had started to rely on Lin Muyu so much. This brat had hastily become the great attendant of the holy temple, but he had changed the holy temple too much. The Cloud King's residence was in chaos. When Luo Xian was carried into the residence, Su Muyun, Su Yu, and the rest were shocked. Looking at the heavily injured Luo Xian, Su Muyun's face was extremely twisted and sinister. Under the illumination of the fire, his eyes were filled with intense anger. Lin Muyu is so ruthless. He actually actually beat Xian up like this. Damn it, damn it. Luo Xian struggled to support his body. His face was filled with guilt. Father, Luo Xian has let you down. I fell for Lin Muyu's trap. If not, I wouldn't have been defeated like this. Su Muyun held his shoulder. Don't say any more. Xian, rest well. Someone, get the young general of the Imperial Physician Association to treat his injuries and prescribe medicine. Yes. Luo Xian's face was filled with unwillingness. But in the end, it was just as Lin Muyu had said. With his body's recovery level, he would need to lie in bed for at least half a month before he could get out of bed. With a creak, Su Muyun closed the door to Luo Xian's room. However, he realized that the bright moon was hanging high in the sky in the courtyard. He slowly walked to the backyard and sat down on a stone bench. He said lightly, "Someone, heat up a pot of wine for me." "Yes, Your Highness." Not long after, a pot of warm wine was served. Su Yu, who was at the side, poured wine for her father and said, "Father, are you disappointed in brother Luo Xian?" "No." Su Muyun drank the wine in one gulp. His face was expressionless as he said, "I know how strong Luo Xian's cultivation is. He is not much weaker than Lin Muyu. If he wants to blame someone, he can only blame his battle experience for not being as good as Lin Muyu. With a little more training, he will definitely become one of the top experts in Lanyan City. The only thing I hate is Lin Muyu. He clearly knows that Luo Xian is my godson, but he still injured Luo Xian to this extent." Su Yu gently sat on the side and leisurely said, "Then has father ever thought that if Yu really hates you that much, she would have the opportunity to kill Luo Xian and cut off one of father's arms?" This, Su Muyun pondered and said, "He still doesn't have the courage and boldness to do so." Su Yu smiled. How could Lin Muyu, who dared to kill Tang Bin and challenge the demon race's army of 100,000 with only 5,000 people, not dare to kill Luo Xian? Father, you did not kill Luo Xian because of your relationship with Xiao Yin. Otherwise, with his personality, I feel that Luo Xian coming back alive is already a miracle. Perhaps, we should consider whether seizing Mount Qi is worth it. What, are you wavering? Su Muyun looked at his daughter and said, Tang Lan is recruiting soldiers wantonly in the Seven Seas Province and Earthstar Province, ignoring Xiao Yin's military strategy. In just 1 month, Tang Lan has recruited a total of 12,000 people. I'm afraid that in another half a year, Tang Lan's military strength will exceed 400,000. If Tang Lan, who has 400,000 soldiers, intends to rebel and collude with Iha country, will the world still belong to Qin? Su Yu was slightly stunned. Father suspects that Tang Lan will rebel? Nothing is impossible. Su Muyun sucked in a breath and said, the demon race is in the ascendant. According to our intelligence, the demon race has already rebuilt the Qianfeng core. Their number of armored demons has already recovered to around 50,000. Adding on the Thunder Chong core, which has not suffered much damage, as long as the demon race leaves the Lingdong province, I'm afraid there will be another bloodbath. After the defeat in the Wildfire Plains, the Qianfeng will not fall for the trap again. The steel walls will be useless against the demon race's siege weapons. Moreover, once the demon race starts another war, they will definitely set their sights on the entire continent. Their military strength will reach an unimaginable level. Tang Lan, no one knows what he is thinking, but I know that a few high-level demon race members appeared in Seven Seas City not long ago, and coincidentally, Tang Lan was in Seven Seas City. Su Yu's beautiful face was filled with shock. Father, you're saying that Tang Lan might collude with the demon race to overthrow the empire? Tang Lan's authority in Zhe Tian Palace is declining day by day. In order to preserve his position, he might have done so, but I don't have any solid evidence. In short, we should prepare early. The day the demon race makes a comeback is the day the empire will be reshuffled. Tang Lan will make some moves, and the Iha kingdom and the Lingdong will also make some moves. We must make the best and most complete preparations in advance. Su Muyun sighed and said, "We also need to recruit more troops from the several prefectures in the northeast of the Lingdong province. Also, you need to take some time to return to the Cloud province. Father will arrange for you to meet the generals of the dozen or so prefectures in the Cloud province. They are all Father's trusted aides. If there are any changes in the empire, they will all obey orders." "Yes, Father, I understand." Suyu bowed and said, "Father, are we doing this to stabilize Shaoyin's empire?" "You can say that. At the same time, we will stabilize our Su family's position in the empire." I understand." At night, Lin Muyu did not slack off on his first night back in Lanyan City. He took a lot of dark steel from Jin Xiaotang and continued to forge weapons. The trip to the Dragon Forest this time was quite fruitful. There were a total of 224 swift wolf spirit stones from 2,000 to 800 years old. It was enough to forge many spirit and mystery-grade weapons. Moreover, Lin Muyu's understanding of the heavenly tomes had also deepened. It was time to forge heavenly tomes' embryonic weapons in batches. After a busy night, his commander's room was already filled with weapons. After a short rest, he began to write the heavenly tomes. Since they were all wind spirit stones, Lin Muyu focused on writing the heavenly tomes of the wind law. The only heavenly tomes of the wind law that he knew was the Storm Dragon Spin, inscribed in the divine tomes. He had no choice but to simplify the divine text and write a simplified version of the Storm Dragon Spin. To be honest, with Lin Muyu's current cultivation, he could not write the complete version of the Storm Dragon Spin at all. In the afternoon, with a swoosh, an earthy yellow light soared into the sky. At least, many people in the Longdan army camp saw it. Situsen drank a cup of wine and looked up. He said, "Commander has written another low-grade earthly tomes." Situ Shui raised her eyebrows and smiled. "This is already the fifth one this afternoon." Wei Chou reached out and plucked the chicken drumstick from the plate. He said, "We must keep this a secret. We cannot let others know that Commander has written so many earthly tomes. Otherwise, there will be many people looking for trouble, especially those masters in the Heavenly Tomes Pavilion." Situ Shui smiled happily. "Don't worry. The people around the Commander's tent are all our trusted aides. No one will know about it." That's good. Drink, drink, drink. You're tuning into the Carefree Valley YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.